The National Museum of Italian Immigration opened 3 years ago in May 2022, and now, after 3 years, we are pleased to enjoy our first European project, Moving Europe. And we are very happy to be involved in this kind of project, and we want to thank Viola Georgi from the Hildesheim University and Migration Lab, who invited us to join a conference in Berlin in 2024, where we had the opportunity to meet some new partners in the big world of migration museum. And we met Euroclio.
My name is Eugenie, and I am Project Manager and Operations Coordinator at Euroclio, the European Association of History Educators. We are based in The Hague, and together with teachers and educational professionals from Europe and beyond, we work on the development of educational resources. We provide opportunities for professional development for history educators that really focus on a variety of different topics that have to do with dealing with a difficult past and also touch upon core democratic skills for teaching history and citizenship education today. We are working together with different museums that focus specifically on migration and schools to really provide young people from across Europe the opportunity to implement and do local research projects about local migration histories. And as part of this project, we are right now, as we speak, doing an international peer learning event. And at this international peer learning event, we have invited our museums, some of the teachers that work with us, and also museums of migration that are not part of our consortium, but are still very important for the field in which we are working. And the aim of this event is to explore how schools and museums can more effectively and more sustainably work together on the long term and build meaningful partnerships.
And I mean, you already heard her name, Viola, who is not here with us, but the reason why we mentioned her is because she really is, I think, the brain behind this project. And about 2 years ago, she came to me and my colleague Steven, and she was like, hey, I have this great idea about museums, schools. We have to do something with museums, with schools, and really have young people involved in exploring, discovering migration history, local migration history, where the museum is really like this hub, the space for learning and for exploring and also negotiating the histories of migration and the legacies of migration today. So she convinced us, and she invited us in Berlin at this conference 2 years ago, or 2024. We met some of the partners, and from then onwards we started working together and building a consortium of museums, mostly museums, across Europe that all have an experience in working on the topic of migration, all from different perspectives, of course, from different contexts. And so we applied for a European Union Remembrance Grant scheme. That's also how this project is funded. And now we are here. So the project officially kicked off in March this year. So we are still kind of in the beginning. It's a 2-year project. And as Georgia and Giovanna already mentioned, we have our partner museums here and the teachers that they've been working with. And the idea is that in these 2 years, the museums, together with the teachers and their students, will be working on local history projects about migration. They will build exhibitions. They will also take part in an international strand where some of the students will come together during an international youth workshop, where they will be kind of translating their local research findings into a more trans-European or transnational source collection exhibition. There's a lot going on in the project, and I'm also happy to talk more about it again over the coffee breaks, over lunches, and so on. Yeah, already as it was mentioned, this event, I mean, in a way it's quite unique. We have many different expertise in this room. It's really like an interdisciplinary gathering. We have the teachers, the museums, the non-partner museums. We also have one of the authors of the guide for educators. That is one of the outcomes of this project. We will also have a session on that this morning. I think what I mostly want to kind of convey is that, you know, it's also a very informal setting. I think we're really here to get to know each other, to share our experiences of how it is to work with young people, how do we engage young people in this type of work, but also specifically when we talk about migration, histories of migration, legacies of migration, and what it means for us today.
We are trying to build an expertise to deal with history, and especially with students. Of course, education doesn't regard only the schools, but this kind of museum, for this kind of museum, the main public is schools. So we really need your expertise. We really are happy to meet and to know what you do, what is your work, or at school, or in your museums, or as private workers or consultant. Branca, I'm saying. So that's why this peer learning event, just to learn from each other. And we are very, very pleased to do that.
So what we'll try to do today is to use some learning technique which for the teachers probably are familiar, but can be used also in museum education, in my opinion. You can go, can you switch to the next slide? So next one, we already introduced ourselves. Okay, thank you. We are talking about, I don't know if any one of you is aware of this Project Zero pedagogy, which is based in the Harvard University faculty, which it's very weird because they are the smallest part of Harvard because they have no such big amount of money, but they did a lot of good work, and this pedagogy is not completely revolutionary. It's something that every experienced teacher use to do, but they systematized. They made it manageable with a systematizing process. Yes. What are the so-called thinking routines? The thinking routines are the mini strategies, the menus that you can use in your classroom. You can use it with every subject, but you have to choose which kind of aspect of the thinking routine you want to use. What does it mean, thinking routine? Means that you, in history, means that you want to make them thinking about the information. As Giovanna said yesterday in our guiding tour, the most important thing when you are teaching history is to make the students thinking. And what does it mean, thinking in history? It means ask questions, you know. And if you systematize the asking question process, you can make them thinking more easily. Okay, it means that also that they are more facilitated in engagement. They are more agents. They try to do things and not only listen to things. This museum is very interesting, and I think the flagship thing in this museum is that try to de-stereotyping the Italian immigration, you know, because Italian immigration has been a very complex phenomenon, but normally understood as a very stereotyping thing. But is a museum full of information, and I would say very full of information. And if you want to engage people in museum with a lot of information, you have to try to make the students and the visitors engaged. And thinking routine is a possible strategy. It also facilitated the inclusion, you know, and diversity and whatever, because you can manage the level of the question, and you can manage also the level of the answer. So you can every question is every answer is good, and you have not to grade and to mark the answer. You have only to continue thinking about the answers. Okay, so today we will divide in 3 groups, and we try to make some work on 3 different thinking routines. And unfortunately, Stefania is not with us, and we are only 2 people. Maybe Marco can help us. But we decided to stay in the original idea, so we divided you in. You divide yourself in 3 groups. Each one of the group has to focus on one of the thinking routine we chose. And the material will be on a Padlet, so if you have your tool, equipment, electronic tool, you have to do it on your Padlet. And we have prepared for you some materials, text and photos. The texts are underlined in the most important part, but you can read it easily because it's a 1-page text, not more. And each of these tests concern a story, a personal, individual story, raising some kind of questions into the thinking routine we are talking about. And you have to choose in each group one rapporteur, because in the end of the work group there will be another plenary in which each rapporteur reports what you find out, and we will try to facilitate your understanding of the material, because many times there is some kind of historical Italian historical insight to understand better what you are doing. That's clear? Okay. So the timing will be more or less 15 minutes for reading and watching what you have in your Padlet. 15-20 minutes to discuss in your group what you find out, and 15-20 minutes to wrap up what your discussion in a small report, and then in the end we will be together here in the plenary to report all the work groups. Okay? So, da-da-da-da. Okay. The thinking routines we chose are filling an option, which is a routine based on the dialectic relationship between feelings and choices. You know, the second thinking routine is based on what we can see and what we think about what we are seeing actually, and how this and is based basically these stories are more full of photographs, of course, and what these photographs means for me as a student, as a visitor, and whatever. Third, the routine is based on the possibility to discuss different perspectives into one story or two stories. Okay. Okay, this is the Padlet if you want to get into the Padlet, and then divide yourself in groups.
She did not leave. She was an American citizen. Yes. So did she choose to leave?
Yeah. Yeah, like that? No.
So it's without the I?
So first we should choose the question, or we should read the whole thing?
Each one of us has their own roots. I'm proud of being
So first of all, thank you for participating in these interesting workshops. In my experience, the workshop activity in the Euroclio environment has been always very, very interesting, as it was today. And a couple of words before giving the floor to the rapporteurs. As you can easily understood now, the thinking routines techniques are nothing exceptional, are, we say in Italian, the discovery of hot water, but a systematizing discovery of hot water, you know. So it's a kind of putting on the table a list of possible techniques. The most difficult things to use these techniques in the most difficult issue to use these techniques at school and in the museums is the time factor, especially in the classes, but also in the museum, because maybe you run a visit of 1 hour and then you have another half an hour to do this with bored kids, and you have to engage them. So it's a difficult question. The second issue is that history in our society is taught in a very lecturing way, in a very academic way. We are used to download a lot of information to the people, and it's much more difficult to engage them in this kind of way. So I'm done. Please, the rapporteur, I give the floor to the rapporteurs of the groups who want to start.
Okay, so we had this thinking routine that was called Circle of Viewpoint. That was called Circle of Viewpoints, in which we have to read the story that was called Between Cinque Terre and New York, so between five lands here in Liguria and New York City. And it was a story of a man who emigrated for political reasons and at some point in New York City decided to build and to start working in a speakeasy, a bar that would sell alcohols during Prohibitionism. And the aim of the thinking routine is to try to make a list of all the different points of view we found in the story, the direct one and the indirect ones. And then we started brainstorming over this point of view we found and saying, okay, what can be their thoughts, what can be the situation. Maybe we overthought a little bit at some point during our discussions, but we found a way to understand all the situation and all the different conditions and point of views we found over here, and then to try to give voice to these different perspectives. We had a theater, like scene, role play, and if you want to say something about that.
Yes, so it's a wonderful story about a character who has many different relatives as well. So his wife is from the States, and there is the political perspective as well. So we chose many different ideas. So instead of choosing one perspective and describing that and trying to find questions, we thought about having all of the perspectives included. So we made a scene. So I'll ask my wonderful members of the group to maybe present the first scene. So behind this scene is each and every one of them chose one perspective from the story that was happening at the moment when the story is told in New York. So are you ready?
And even if the scene has 2 seconds or something more for each participant, it takes longer because we have to...
So it's a technique that could be done very in an easy way, but it's also connected to what you were saying about the zero method. So students would probably come up with it on their own as well. So it's a lot of the things that they do, so they can also remember it in a different way. So when they get into the role of someone from a historical perspective, they remember it easily, but they also get into the shoes of the person. So do you want to do it? Okay, so I think they already know their roles. So they picked roles and they represent one sentence. They imagined what the person from the story would be telling in that particular scene. So yes, and then maybe you can guess later on who was who. Okay, yeah, you can come up to the front. So some of the members, it's maybe important to say, some of the members of the group, they were afraid to come forward because they're not actors, but it's not about acting, it's about really getting into the shoes of someone else. So don't worry about the acting, they didn't have any preparation for that. Okay, you're involved as well.
Yeah.
Can you repeat?
I'm waiting for the alcohol delivery.
I'm waiting for my son's car.
Give me your money, you stupid, dirty Italian.
Okay, thank you. And then the second scene, don't go away. Go away with the saying. So she is a worker in the mine, and she's 15 years old, and now they want to give some kind of, the society that she lives in, they want to give some kind of support to her.
Don't we organize?
Come with us.
Come back to Italy.
Do you want to eat something?
This is as you choose, it's your fault.
Yeah, those two represented her consciousness. Okay, maybe you can stay still for a picture.
We have the second routine, which is related to fourth stage activity. See objectively what is included in a photo, the content of a photo, without any interpretations. The second part, the second stage, is think. And children can be encouraged to present their thoughts and explanations about the photo, what might happen in that scene. The third stage, about me, what connections can you make between you and what you see? And in that stage, it is an interesting situation, circumstance to express themselves, their capital of knowledge, experience, probably their children are immigrants too. And the fourth stage, which is related to making connections with the bigger stories, the great events, for instance, as consequences. This story is a consequence, the migration which is presented in the photo is a consequence of a war or a crisis. So making connection, the fourth stage is making connection with the wider story, and it is about the world and also the local history. As for our results, the first one is encourage children to analyze sources. We analyzed a narrative and also a photo. This is a part of a procedural learning in history teaching and not declarative learning, just take in advance that this is the truth, just analyze and create history. The second is multi-perspectivity, the combination of different historical sources. We used a photo and also we used a narrative, and a very interesting suggestion is that to use these different sources in a spiral way, gradually, and in a way to help the contextualization and step by step giving explanations, not in advance restricting children to make their own assumptions. So we start with the assumptions on the photos, on the sources, the assumptions which children make, and then we give them some more historical information in order to have the basis to express more interpretations. And one of the results was this equilibrium, this balance between identity and alternity. Yes, we need different the different explanations, the different interpretations, and taking into consideration the explanation of others. And important terms are critical pedagogy. So critical analysis of sources is related to critical pedagogy, and active pedagogy. So this creation, this reconstruction of the past is part of this active learning. Okay?
So yeah, we were the group Feelings and Options, and we chose a story about someone from Italy who immigrated to Germany with his family, and he tells about the difficulties that he and his family is facing in Germany. For example, his mother, who's used to hang the linen, the laundry on a Sunday, and the neighbors calling the police because this is something you don't do on a Sunday. The person who's the protagonist of the story, he finally gets the chance to do a radio program on a public radio station, where he talks about the difficulties Italian immigrants are facing, and he also explains about norms and rules in Germany to his fellow Italian immigrants. Like, for example, that on the streets you shouldn't hump just for greeting someone else, but only if it's severe and dangerous. So this was the example given. So we had different steps we went through. The first one was to identify the people involved in the dilemma. So for us, this was this person, Pasquale Marino, and the Italian community in Germany, who are listeners of this radio channel Mezz'ora, who face these difficulties around norms, laws, rules that are not the same than in their home country. Then we were asked to think about the feelings that are evoked by this person, and they are quite different. So on the one hand, this person, Pasquale, he's feeling proud to be like the voice of the Italian immigrants in Germany. He feels like he has a mission, and also individually, he's happy about the chance to have a position at the radio. And on the other hand, we talked a lot about the mother and probably her frustration and fear, maybe also feeling the hostility of her neighbors who are not just coming to her and having a conversation about different norms, but calling the police immediately. And then the third part was that we were imagining what could happen instead. And we were talking about the scenario that the neighbor probably could not just call the police, but have a conversation on hanging the linen on Sunday. Or we were talking about an alternative radio station that is communicating also to the dominant German society about different norms and having an exchange about it. And not just saying, okay, this is the rule here, you have to adapt to it. And the conclusion was, or the fourth part then was about imagining what would the people involved say. And we came to the conclusion that it's just important to communicate and to talk to each other, and that this could be a way of handling it. Is there anything you want to add?
I think what was also interesting for us that we start asking that if I would be this Italian or this German person in this situation of kind of potential conflict or just differences, if I would really say that, like, if I would come and say, like, listen, I know it's Sunday, but I just really want to hang my laundry. Or if I would be a German, I would come and say, like, you cannot hang this laundry because it's a Sunday, that's the norm. And like how this would actually could lead us to the potential, and now is the question, conflict kind of, or understanding, because I think the kind of a conclusion of this part of the discussion was also when we put our boundaries, because everything is based on the tolerance and kind of like acceptance, right? I mean, if there's I'm looking at my group, if I'm saying correctly what we discuss, but I think there's like some amount which you can like adjust yourself in the new culture, but there are also the line when you say, I cannot adjust anymore because this is my part of identity. So I think what the question were on the Padlet, which Polo wrote, was like, if I would say that. So yeah, because first we said, wait, why they cannot just say, okay, hang this laundry, I mean, that's your home, do whatever you want. But when you start discussing, it's actually not always this is what is going to happen.
Welcome back. So our next session will be presented by Maria Flagaki, and she is one of the authors of the Guide for Educators. Now, before I give the floor to her, I will just give a little bit of context. I mean, most of you already know that we are, of course, developing a guide, but some of you are new in our group, so we will. So I will just say a few words about it, what it is, and why we are developing it. I mean, essentially, I would say one of the overarching aims of this project is also to really explore how we can build sustainable and impactful partnerships between museums and schools, especially when it comes to researching migration history. And also from our experience, so Eurocleo's experience, here I have to note, is that teachers do work with museums, they organize visits. Of course, it already happens, but oftentimes it's a one-off visit where the museum is not necessarily becoming a partner, more of a long-term partner. That can actually work more closely with the students. So you have museum educators or maybe even museum curators or researchers at the museum who can work more closely long-term with students and guide them through their historical research work and their projects. So in this project we are trying to figure that out. Okay, we have the museums, we have the teachers, how does this partnership come about? How can it be meaningful? How can it also be feasible and tangible for both the teachers but also the museums? And what are the main takeaways? What are some of the challenges that we see? What are some best practices also in terms of activities that we can do? So we are trying to capture all this also in a guide for educators. So educators in this case in quite a broad sense. So both teachers, school teachers, but also museum educators, and it can even apply to educators outside of the formal educational setting, outside of the school framework, so youth workers, for example. So we have Maria and Stefania Gargioni, who unfortunately couldn't make it to our meeting today, but together they are working on a development of the Guide for Educators, and I mean, Maria will present you and tell you all about it, but it is going to be a bit of a combination where we provide a framework of how you can set up your project, really from the beginning to the very end. A little bit of theory. We cannot go without, unfortunately, we can, but we try to keep the theory quite concise, and also with some practical activities that can be applied in the museum context, but also in the classroom. So for today, Maria will first start with a presentation about the content and kind of how the guide is structured and some of the main elements of the guide, the building blocks. And then in the second half of her presentation, she and Stefania developed some example activities that they would like to include in the guide, and we can jointly take a look, and any thoughts, any questions, any suggestions are more than welcome. Just as a side note, for the partners for Moving Europe, we already shared the abstract and the example activities, so you had some time to take a look at it with some guiding review questions. For the non-partner museums, I mentioned this during our online gathering a week ago, that this is also something that we are developing as part of the project, although we know that you have not been of course, not in a position to follow the development of the guide from the beginning onwards, but for you it's really also an invitation to kind of just as a first glance see what's in there, what will it entail, and you're also more than welcome to provide any feedback, any thoughts and questions. Okay, I'll leave it here.
Okay. So, thank you for the invitation, and thank you the members of Euroclio team, and also the members of the Museum of Migration, National Museum of Migration here in Italy, who hosts this meeting. For me is a very important chance to meet you in close with different individuals, partners, and educators and curators of the participant museums. We have talked online in some discussions, and this is the chance to meet you in close and discuss more on this project. We have started working since the last July with Stefania Cargioni. We are both history educators. Me personally, I have a background also on museum studies and also intercultural education. We are going, I'm going to present the main axis of the theoretical background of this guide, and also we will have the chance to analyze the activities. We have written 2 activities, but in the presentation, I have also included some more ideas as for educational activities, which are also part of previous research in the context of my PhD dissertation. So let me start. Why migration history matters? This is part of the introduction, and we are going to see migration as a core component of European, but not only European, but global context, global history. So this discussion among European and global is important, and local, of course. We will have local stories, not just local or global, and discuss long-term continuities, early mobility, labor, and post-colonial migrations. We are going to mention also in the introduction the links to contemporary challenges in local societies, and to talk about specific aims such as critical thinking. We saw before the critical analysis of sources, empathy, historical empathy, and empathy according to emotions, and also intercultural dialogue. The museum can be, or the school setting can be a place for dialogue and discussion. And emphasis on democratic competencies and not only historical skills, and global citizenship competencies. We are coming back to that and analyze more. The first part is going to insist on understanding of migration in contemporary context, and we will try to clarify the term related to different types of migration. We have diaspora, repatriation, mixed migration. Some stories in which this museum hosts present these differences as for the types of migration, as an example, and also different frames of migration, the context, voluntary, forced, environmental, labor, family-based, different contexts and frames of migration. Also, typologies in order to help encourage children to analyze the motives and also the specific condition, for instance, political reasons, economical reasons for taking the decision to migrate. And also, to conclude, highlighting the migration as a multifaceted and always gradually evolving phenomenon, not something that is fixed and only particular, but different in different settings and also contexts. The second part is is devoted to the conceptual models of inclusion. There are different approaches of migration. We are going to take the main three: the assimilation, which is related to paying attention only on the dominant culture and history, and not taking into consideration the other. The second one, multicultural, we accept, we acknowledge that we have differences, but not encourage dialogue among different communities. And the third is the aim, the interaction, the social inclusion, which the intercultural model promotes. And this is also the aim as for the pedagogical approach. As for the approaches we're going to use, inclusiveness, acceptance of diversity, multi-perspectivity in sources and narratives. We have mentioned that before during the workshops. Also, the migration learning arc, which is important because it takes into consideration in three parts to deal with specific sources. We collect migration stories, and we need that act of collection. We also need understanding of migration, and this turn to action. And these three parts of the migration learning arc are interrelated, closely interrelated, because we have what museums do: collect stories, collect exhibits. We have understanding as for the education, either in the museum or educational setting, and turn to action. Why these previous stages, these previous effort, which is more intellectual, is related to everyday life. So it is related to, for instance, transform our attitudes towards immigrants. And global citizenship education, we are going to explain it more. Democratic competencies framework, as it was presented by Council of Europe in 2018 in the specific guide published in 2018, and UNESCO Global Citizenship Education. We will have a look on the slides. This is the well-known butterfly as for the democratic competencies for promoting history, education, and culture in contemporary settings. The main aspect is critical understanding of ourselves, of our history, and not only the others. Values, attitudes, skills, and not only knowledge. Most of our school textbooks and curricula are knowledge-centered, so we need something more than these, the usual model for teaching history and approaching the past. Global citizenship education, you can see different topics. We have peace education, global culture, social equality and justice, democracy and politics, environment education, human rights, ethics, and theology. Also, theology and ethics is also related to how we can deal with these stories. It is a sensitive part of history. And also education for sustainable development. All members of a community, of the local community, can contribute to the history of the community, global issues and interventions, this interrelation among the local and the global are also important. And as for the competencies, according to global citizenship education, we have the knowledge, we have values, again, attitudes and skills, and examining local and global, and we have these interrelations and intercultural issues, the understanding and appreciating the perspectives and worldviews of others. This is empathy, which is important. Engage in open and appropriate and effective interactions across cultures. So we have a dialogue among different communities, so we need to find common space, but also common values, and democratic values are common values, and more take action for collecting well-being and sustainable development. So we have the problem, we try to find solution, and in practice with all the members, all the partners. And this is the whole guidance matrix for global citizenship education. The source is from UNESCO 2015. You can discern the three parts: cognitive, socio-emotional, and behavioral. We have this is more analytical as for the aims and also the actions we aim to. So we have key learning outcomes, key learning attributes, and also topics. So this can be this narrative, and also this learning process can be more open as for these three parts. And as you understood during the previous workshop, we are going to include, to comprise in that guide how we can use the aims of and the competencies of Zero Project. We have again these aim to trying to find out connections among the individual and the wider people and systems. Also empathy, historical empathy, take perspective as for self, people, nature with empathy, communicate across differences, notice injustice, that call for learning responses, finding out solutions, as we mentioned before, as I mentioned before. So envision and words, and try to imagine how these finding solution will lead to a better life, daily life, but also a better world, and take action for that, and try to due to a historical learning process which is powerful, and give the reasons, and give the find out the reasons and also the consequences of some problems related to the actions. So find out solutions, and also be much more powerful as for this research. And the third part is going to be more focused on museums, and how they can be turned to sites for not only historical learning, but also inclusion. Third space for intercultural dialogue, and more brave space in order to discuss more sensitive and controversial issues. We're going to present a kind of a stage, pre-visit preparation, accessibility, so before the museum, in the museum, and after the museum stage. We're going to use also to present activities which are related to different types of sources, not only objects, but also narratives, and also artifacts. Digital tools will be also one of the part of this guide, and how we can develop virtual exhibitions, mapping, crowdsources, archives. And as I mentioned before, the project Zero Thinking Routines, in particular in activities which can also facilitate all the educators in different settings. The fourth part will focus on how this representation and dialogue can be promoted in migration education. First of all, we will try to integrate different stories, and especially integrate children's, students' stories, narratives from their family, also from their community, and represent different migrant voices authentically and beyond tokenism. That is a main point. And also try to find out hidden aspects of the local past and make comparisons as for what happens nowadays. This is a photo of my dissertation. In Greece, we had a hidden migratory and refugee past. It's not a glory story. That's why it is hidden. And it is a chance to discover this past and also make comparisons to what happens now. We have many refugees in our country, so it will be interesting to that mirroring in order to acknowledge our refugee and migratory past and build up more acceptance as for the newcomers. At the fifth part, we're going to present how we can build ethical and sustainable partnerships, focusing on communities, also how this cooperation can be developed among museums and schools and other partners of the local community, including immigrant and refugee communities, aiming to the sustainability and the enriching of the narratives of migration. In that part of the sixth part, we're going more to focus on how the student projects can be built up. We are going to present and describe a specific frame, but that can be also one choice for education, but not only the only one. It can be, it can have a stage path, identify a theme as an issue, research, engage with museums and communities, interpret creatively, produce an output, reflect on the output, on the result of this research, share, and that can be also a separate stage, and the outputs, the results of this work, this creative work, can be exhibitions, digital archives, either on the school website, or on the museum, or on the community website, historical walks, and also reminders kits, memory kits in cooperation with the communities, different communities. We are going to base this effort, this especially as for the schools, on the historical inquiry-based learning, inquire, ask questions, make suppositions as for the content of the source of events, persons, and historical also concepts, using also historical concepts, evidence, causes, consequences, changes. These are concepts of historical learning. Research and organize, identify historical sources, categorize sources as for their types, theme, period, refer to, analyze and evaluate sources, compare different historical sources, verify the credibility, these sources, evaluate if the sources answer these historical questions, the initial questions, and also the stage of construction, reconstruction, and reflection, synthesize new interpretations and historical knowledge, and make new questions and hypotheses for further research. This is a part of what we described during the previous workshop of the process of historical learning and acting as historians, which is much more creative than just declaratively take the knowledge which is for granted, presented in the school text. Creative strategies and learning tools, as you have seen in the activities. We have thinking routines and object-based learning, but also oral stories and testimonies, documentary and verbatim theater, taking extracts of narratives, and also another idea is taking different perspectives and these discussion on different perspectives, like theater forum theater. Augusto Boll presented this type of theater, so we can discuss in that type of theater controversial issues and taking into different aspects, consider different aspects. Film education and critical analysis, artworks. Art is the easiest way to express the most difficult aspects and most difficult sensitive issues. Create museum collection and exhibition, physical and digital. So we are going to put children, students in the case to create their own collections and exhibitions either at school or at the museum setting. Digital mapping and local migration routes. We're going to see some of these in the activities following. Historical walks and mobile learning, which is also interesting because it is based on crowdsourcing and the connection, and community memory projects such as reminiscence kits and shared exhibitions with among school and museum or museum and communities. This is part also of art work, shoes from different places. Under each shoes, there are different stories of migration. This is a project of mine, and also an example of a documentary film using different parts of stories, and that mirroring the local migratory past and the stories of newcomers, immigrants. If we have time, we can present it later on, this documentary. It's also in English, not in Greek. So the subtitles in English. We are going also to have a glossary of key terms, which I think is it's important for educators, for people who are not so much acquainted as for the issue of migration. Also, a repository of museum sources, and educators can find selected objects, or they can find websites of the collaborating museums, but also of other museums and monuments which can be used too. Also, it is a good idea to incorporate sites, websites of immigrant refugees communities in that project, and also to be incorporated in that guide. And a useful part, it is how we can use digital tools, either from the museum or the educational setting, and curation. So I'm going to the activities. The specific aims of the activities are first to connect the museum with the community and the different groups of individuals and groups which compose the community inside the wider participation of individuals to a more creative process of the museological narrative on migration, also enhance the discovery and recognition of hidden aspects of local history, promote sustainability because we have this continuous enrichment of different sources, different narratives. So a crucial question is how often do we change the exhibition of stories and how this exhibition is open to new stories. So through the educational program, we have a chance to open this exhibition and to take into consideration different voices, and the museum be much more to grasp what the local community is interested in. Also support this pedagogical transformation. We have much information, historical information, so the aim of one of the crucial aim of the activities is how we pedagogically transform this historical knowledge and also facilitate this making connection among the local and the global history. 6 points, very, very briefly, because are parts of the activities you have already known. The first one is, as for the content, this interrelating of microhistory, family, local history, to macro history, the bigger history, the great events or the actions of great personalities. So students could realize the impact which these events have not only at a local level but worldwide. And at in the second activity, we have monuments which are related to different migration movements from different countries and different events, and that this is very interesting as for the analysis of the monuments which are placed in different places, in different countries, but are related to migration. The second point is that we try to promote this open historical inquiry. So we encourage students to bring their own stories, to bring their own objects, according memorabilia, according to their family immigrant story. So this is an open historical inquiry, not based on specific sources. We also have, and that's the reason for not defining the particular time, didactic time we need. So we can have an approximate time, but the activities are based on an open historical inquiry learning process. It depends on the informats, it depends also on the local historical monuments and the paths the school class can follow. This is an example of a previous educational program, memory walks, taking extracts of narratives and combining the specific monuments on this map in our neighborhood, and also connect with these extracts, these narrations. The third point is embracing alternative aspects and interpretations, and also invite different informals to talk about their experiences, and also connect places with the daily roots. Also create soundscapes and smellscapes, not only narrations and connecting to different places, but also according to building up a multi-sensory narrative smellscapes. We have places where shops with spices are cafes, tavernas, so we can see also different neighborhoods where different shops and markets can be, and also this map can be also thematic as for the issues we are interested in. And of course we can have immigrant communities with different jobs and different neighborhoods that could be interesting. Also the color, not only the smells of neighborhoods. Different sources, not only secondary as are in textbooks, but primary sources, and discussion on them, and different interpretations according to the origin, the gender, the age of immigrants, the motives, the difficulties. We're going to include also activity sheets, specific activities in the appendix of this guide, but of course this guide will give also the chance to open educators their own activities. This is an activity to analyze narratives, which were the causes. We have different migrations of different periods, or historical periods, and we try in that activity to make a thematic analysis of different narrations which are related to different historical periods of migration at a place. And the sixth one, the using of digital tools creatively, and in that way to expand the already existed narrative of the museum, and making connection not only in the local community but over locally with other communities which are abroad, and also the interconnection of collections and archives. And the key word is crowdsourcing, which is, in my opinion, very important as for the openness of this narrative. And concluding, you have already the abstract and the activities. Some guiding questions for this part of dialogue and feedback. How effectively does this guide integrate the theoretical frameworks we have mentioned it, democratic competencies, the global citizenship, with practical classroom? This is a question especially for history educators and museum educators, not only history educators. And are the methodologies we suggest for inclusive and multi-perspective approach of migration are adaptable to different national and institutional contexts? This is related also to policies as for migration, and we see policies either in developing the school curricula, either in developing museum exhibitions, especially those which are supported by the government in each country. And also, how could the guide further enhance the active participation and representation of immigrant communities, either in educational or in museum settings. This is very crucial because we can develop an educational program either at school or at the museum, but how wide can that be and open to different aspects, to different stories, and also to different interpretations as for the migration phenomenon or refugee movements. So thank you for your attention. The project titled Different Roads, Parallel Stories, and it is related to this comparison among the the local migratory and refugee past, which is a hidden part, not glorious part of history, and the histories of migration of newcomers in our area. So this comparison is really vital in order to take action and to change our attitudes towards and stereotypes towards the newcomers, the new immigrants. So it's a local history project in which students participated actively in the historical research, find out monuments, for instance, houses of old refugees, and also names which are related to the refugee past in their local neighborhood. And we use also, as you can see, the technique of mirroring. We have a mirror and different ancestors, children who are ancestors of of Greek refugees in the area, present their family history, and then we have the narratives of newcomers, of refugees and from Syria. You can see we have two students who we try to incorporate them in our classes. Not many words, just the project.
Βυζάντιο, η περιοχή μας. Βυζάντιο σαν μια ανάμνηση παλιά.
Ρώμη, οι πλατείες, τα σπίτια μαρτυρούν ένα διαφορετικό παρελθόν. Ιστορίες προσφυγιάς παλιές, ιστορίες προσφυγιάς σύγχρονες.
Ταξιδευτές στον χρόνο σε δρόμους διαφορετικούς.
Λέγοντας ιστορίες παράλληλες.
Τι σου λείπει από την πατρίδα σου?
ليش مستعهني ببلدك؟
عادي للحارة
للبابا στις γειτονιές του μπαμπά μου. Επειδή μας έβαλε και η μαμά μου βόλτες έξω από το σπίτι.
Πώς συνοχή?
كيف كانت حياتك هنيك؟
كويسة.
أوريا. يعني شو كنتوا تسووا هنيك يعني خلال اليوم؟
كنا نلعب لما كان بابا كان يروح يشتغل.
Παίζαμε και όταν ήταν ο μπαμπάς μου εκεί μαζί πήγαινε στη δουλειά.
شنو الباباش؟
مشتاق للبابا؟ نعم.
هكذا.
كثير؟ نعم. وين هلا؟
بالسويد.
في السويدية طبعا. شكرا لك.
ماريا كان ممكن واحد رايح على كثير
Μαρία, είχατε στην οικογένειά σου άτομα που λείπαν από την πατρίδα τους, πολύ καιρό?
Ναι, ο προπαππούς μου ο Στέφανος και η προγιαγιά μου η Ευτέρπη ήταν πόντι και ήρθαν στην Ελλάδα και ο παππούς μου με τη γιαγιά μου πήγανε μετανάστες στη Γερμανία και ήρθαν μετά από 4 χρόνια στην Ελλάδα ξανά.
Είχατε πρόσφυγες στην οικογένεια?
Ναι. Η Γεωργία, που είναι η μαμά της γιαγιάς μου, ήρθε με τον άντρα της από την Ανδριανούπολη στην Ελλάδα, στην πρώτη Σερό. Εκεί μαζί με τον άντρα της και τα παιδιά της έφτιαξαν με πολύ κόπο ένα σπίτι για να μείνουν. Η γιαγιά μάλλον δεν ήθελε να φύγει από τη χώρα της, αλλά έπρεπε γιατί είχαν πόλεμο.
Και είχατε πρόσφυγες στην οικογένειά σας?
Ναι, είχαμε τον πρόπαππού μας τον Δημήτρη που καταγόταν από την τραπεζούντα του Πόντου και έφυγε από την Τουρκία κυνηγημένος μαζί με την οικογένειά του και έφερε μαζί του την εικόνα του Αγίου Δημητρίου και μέσα στα λίγα πράγματα που είχαμε.
Από ποια χώρα ήρθες?
Από Αυστραλία.
Πώς ήταν εκεί?
Καλά.
Γιατί πήραν εκεί?
Γιατί οι γονείς μου είναι μετανάστες.
Σ' αρέσει περισσότερο στην Ελλάδα ή στην Αυστραλία?
Στην Ελλάδα.
Σου έρθαν αγαπημένα πρόσωπα, η γιαγιά, ο παππούς?
Ναι. Η γιαγιά πολύ, γιατί πιο πολύ με αυτή να μιλάω και συνεννοούμαστε καλά.
Σ' αρέσει περισσότερο στην Ελλάδα ή στην Αυστραλία?
Στην Ελλάδα. Γιατί τώρα έχω φίλους πολλούς και μπορώ να παίξω μαζί τους στο σχολείο.
Είχατε πρόσφυγες στην οικογένειά σου?
Είχαμε. Όταν είχαν έρθει εδώ πέρα οι Τούρκοι για πόλεμο, είχαν φύγει οι δικοί μου ως πρόσφυγες στη Γεωργία και όταν τελείωσε ο πόλεμος είχαν ξανάρθει στην πατρίδα τους.
يوم اللي اجوا الاتراك لهون وكان في حرب بيت جدي راحوا على بلد اسمه جورجيا وبس خلص الحرب رجعوا لهون.
ليش الأتراك رجعوا؟
γιατί ήρθαν οι Τούρκοι εδώ.
Είχαν έρθει εδώ πέρα για πόλεμο.
اجوا لهون مشان يحاربوا مشان يحتلوا البلد.
Οι πρόγονοι μας έφυγαν από την Τραπεζούντα τον 17ο αιώνα και πήγαν στο διπλανό χριστιανικό κράτος γιατί τους κυνηγούσαν οι Τούρκοι. Η ζωή τους φυσικά άλλαξε γιατί έφυγαν από τα σπίτια τους, άφησαν τις περιουσίες όπως και οι δικοί μου οι παππούδες που ήρθαν από τη Γεωργία στην Ελλάδα. Άφησαν τα σπίτια τους, δυσκολευόντουσαν για να βρουν άλλες δουλειές, αλλά όταν τελείωσε ο πόλεμος ξαναπέστρεψαν στην πατρίδα.
من أي بلد أنت؟
بلد من حلب بس غابين عند الحافة.
أبو خالبي أبو دير حافر.
Πότε έφυγες από τη χώρα σου?
إيمت طلعت من بلدك؟
طلع من مسافر أبوي.
Όταν έφυγε ο πατέρας μου.
Από ποιες χώρες πέρασες?
ومن أي بلاد مريت يعني يوم سافرت؟
جينا على بلاد جينا على تركيا.
في تركيا.
Από Τουρκία. Πόσες μέρες έμεινες?
كم يوم ضليتوا بتركيا؟
ضلينا 10 أيام.
10 μέρες.
Σε ποια πόλη έμεινες?
أي مدينة كنت ساكن هنا؟
كنا ساكنين مدينة.
سميها بولي.
Πώς ήταν το σπίτι σου?
كيف كان بيتك هنا بسوريا؟
كنا مكيفين. بيت حلو.
Ήμασταν πάρα πολύ ωραία, πάρα πολύ ωραία. Ήταν πολύ ωραίο το σπίτι μας.
Είχες δικό σου δωμάτιο?
كان في غرفة إلك أنت؟
لا كنا ما في.
Όχι, ήμασταν όλοι μαζί.
أنا ما كان عندي غرفة.
Πόσο λεπτό?
لا ما كان عندي غرفة.
Πόσο λεπτό?
كم أخ عندك؟
7 هذولي.
7.
Υπάρχει ακόμα το σπίτι σου στη Συρία?
بيتكم اللي بسوريا بعده موجود؟
لا أخذوا النظام
Oggi, tu vieni.
لسه جزء ما أخذوا زي أخذوا
Moria come la vinto pare.
سوريا مو هجموا عليها بس هسه يهجموا عليه قبلها
يا تي انسريت نحن في بولي.
طيران كلهم بيهجموا علينا
كي ايرو بوريكا.
Portuguese tiles are very well known. The traditional tile is just white painted in blue, but they took it to a whole different level with all of these different colors, different designs, even 3D texture tiles and all of these different things, because this was one way of them expressing their wealth and how well they succeeded. You know about immigrants? When they return, one of the things is they want to show that it was worth it, that all of the sacrifices, everything that went bad, all of the suffering they went through worked. And when they came back home, they wanted to show. This still happens today, because then in the 50s and 60s and 70s, we had many immigrants to many European countries like France, Germany, to the States and all that. And it's still common. You can almost identify, well, it was more common than today, but you could identify the immigrant's house, because it would have certain characteristics. It would be built in a specific style. And you can even tell that he came from America or that he was from France, because he would bring whatever construction techniques or whatever he saw as his welcoming country, and then he would try to translate that in. So what we did here, this was involved groups, a school of high school students, actually from the ages of 11 to 15, I think, 16. And the idea was to connect them with this tradition and this heritage that they have, that they could see at the buildings, and use mathematics to do that. So the project arises from the need for an education focused not merely on curriculum content, but also primarily on the articulation, knowledge, and dissemination of local history and heritage. These are tiles that are from different buildings. These are replicas. They were then made, and the panels were put together by the students. And they represent different designs of tiles in buildings in Faf. So as I said, the 19th century left its mark on the lands of Faf, especially with the strong influx of immigration to Brazil. Many of these immigrants later brought their savings to Faf, invested, and constructed these buildings. And we even have the Brazilians, okay? The torna viagem, which means people who returned from their voyage, okay? They returned from their tour. The purpose of this activity was to lead students to classify the motifs found in tiles, establishing a connection between the Faf heritage and mathematics. The students should understand which isometries were necessary for the construction of each frieze and proceed to create them. So the mathematic teachers were asked, or they would look at the tiles and see what, from the contents that they had to teach, what they could remove from that. This was at the end, this is a circle theme, because you study mathematics, you get through to local heritage, you understand more your local community, and then it closes back to the curriculum. So it was a full circle project. The art and joy of creation are the starting point for approaching this theme, demystifying mathematics and creating new interests in subjects. I don't know if in Portugal mathematics is tricky. Kids don't really like that much mathematics. It's a struggle for teachers to get them interested in mathematics. So any projects or ideas that try to put because we all know that mathematics is everywhere, but for kids it's not easy to understand. And these are ways of them looking at the world and seeing why and how mathematics can work, and why is it useful, and why what they're learning can be applied on and can work on. Arts and mathematics has always gone hand in hand, forming part of the reference points in human life. Creativity, beauty, universally, dynamism and qualities were frequently used with referring to other arts or mathematics, whose beauty and rigor are associated with them. Both represent ways of thinking about and interpreting the world around us, and translate into more relationships around us than those we usually witness. Okay, so it's about getting them all involved. This is another facade of another building. We have several of them. For those who don't know, Faf is a very small city. The municipality has just 50,000 inhabitants. The city center would be around 25 or something, so it's not very, it's not very big. So these houses, we have several of them, they really stand out. And many of them are now publicly owned because some of the buildings were transformed. But the tiles are very present, and this was a way of putting the kids, the students, looking at their landscape in a different way, okay? The creation, development, and implementation of the project, Mathematics with Art Brazilian Tiles, aimed at students of the second and third cycles of basic education, seeks to connect mathematics with art through the painting of representative tile on the facades of Brazilian houses in the city of Faf. Also today we have about 20% of the student population is foreign. It's not from Faf. Most of them are from this project. The aim is to go from public schools also to the private schools so that it would be open to everybody. We have lots of kids from Brazil. Brazil is one of them. Also, I think it's Ukraine and then Israel, the countries that, Israel because there's a private school there which takes some children to Faf. So the action plan was the project developed mathematics teachers of the third cycle, 9th grade students with the age of 14 and 15. The Professor Carlos Teixeira school group, we had 3 school groups, and this was the mathematics faculty of this school group who worked on the project. So the objectives were to explore the architectural richness of Brazilian returnees from Faf through the lens of mathematics, to involve students in field activity, immersing them in local history and heritage. They had to leave the school, go and visit the buildings, see the facades, to encourage students to pay more attention to the world around them, and to motivate students towards mathematics and show that beyond what they learn in the classroom, they find mathematics everywhere. Okay, so I just... it resulted then at the end of the curriculum, all of the studies, then it resulted in a small exhibition. So they did a construction of display stands, we produced tiles, the assembly of the tiles, of the patterns, and the exhibition of the patterns. These are parts of the studies that the students develop. You can see the building on one side, the specific tiles of that building, and each group worked on one building and one specific type of tiles. The municipal support, because I work at the town hall of Faf, okay. This municipal support, we worked as a facilitator for the whole process. We ensured the construction of the display stands, the placement in schools. We made a permanent exhibition in the schools, logistic and material support. Exhibition was prompted and communicated to the community. These things, because schools many times have difficulties with these smaller things, getting a budget to build some, and it's easier for the city. So if we have a project and an idea, it's easier for us to do the investment and to work as a facilitator, and that's what we tried to go for. And this project was actually referenced in the newsletter of the Portuguese Network of Educated Cities in 2003. Just an example that we were noticed for the project, okay? I'll take some questions if you want after. Then just wanted to show you another thing that we have in Faf, which is we do every year a Faf school guide, which is a document which has, this one from 2004-2005, we put in it everything that could be interesting for a school. Implemented in 2003, the school guide is a manual distributed to all teachers in public and private schools, but it's intended for the entire local school community. We have a gathering at the beginning of the school year where we invite all of the teachers of all of the schools, and they come and the guide is presented, it's shown to everybody. We put names, all of the city's departments who are involved in projects. We give the school community a notice of all the projects that are being developed in the city, either sustainability, mobility, whatever kind of project there is, it's described there. We put the names so that they know who to contact, because sometimes it's difficult. Town halls are big and sometimes they don't know who to contact, so we get all our names there. Obviously it's a bit of a burden on us, but it's good because the teachers will come, contact directly, we will book things, we will talk to them, because to make the school field trips so that they can develop projects that are related to the curriculum. If we have a project working in the same area, to try to get them to connect and to see if it's possible to do. Obviously, museums have a big part of this. We put out all of the museums, all of the services, so that they know who to contact to get to book the visits. And we get several hundreds of visitors each year just from this specific program. Museum of Migrations is one of the most sought after, visited, and requested spaces by school and teachers of different subjects. The Museum of Migration, because it's so connected to local identity, local heritage, and local culture, it's very much sought after by the schools. And also the Museo do Rally, because FAF is known as the Cathedral of Rally in Portugal, because we host the WRC world stage competition and several other rallies, because the landscape is very suiting for rally. Whenever you see rally and it's in Portugal and you see these big jumps, mostly they're in FAF. It's a related theme, which kids connect very strongly, and grown-ups as well, but kids as well. So this was just it, very simple, very fast. If anybody has any question, I can then try to answer. As I said, I didn't mention it earlier, but I am here representing Paula Nogueira, which is the person responsible for this project. She couldn't come, but she, well, you got me, so it's you're lost, but it's what we get. Paula Nogueira will have the contacts there if you need any information, previous or from me. We work together, so there's no problem. Okay, thank you.
These are two narratives, basically two online exhibitions that I have been working on the Operation Storm, the stories from the Hague courtrooms. That is the online exhibition that I have curated, and the web narrative, digital narrative about the Operation Pocket 93, which I have, we will present it on at the beginning of December, so you have exclusive information about this digital interactive narrative, which I will show you briefly how it looks like. So basically the idea is in the work that I am engaged in is to work with youth in terms of understanding the wars of the 1990s and historical events that took place during that period of time beyond dominant ethno-nationalist frames, and to use the archives in a way that is publicly accessible and widely understood. What is maybe the most important part, both of the digital narrative and the online exhibition, is that my colleague Nicola and I had, the outcome is basically the result of interdisciplinary research. So we are bringing together law, history, and political science, and both of the projects were conducted during this year and last year. So except the historiographical part of these events that took place during September 1993 and August 1995, was to, and that is the specific type of this kind of an analysis of the events, that we put a lot of effort on its consequences on our contemporary societies within the post-Yugoslav countries. Therefore, we dedicated a lot to analyze the memory politics, the legal challenges surrounding the rehabilitation and prosecution of war criminals, and ongoing dynamics of migration. It would be great if we can show one of the narratives, just for you to have an idea what I'm talking about. Yes, so we can switch. Yes, we can go just slide. So we can see how it looks like. We are using different kind of multimedia and trying to visually present in the graphical way changes that have occurred during this operation. we are trying to deconstruct some of the key terms related to the wars of the 1990s to show some maps in order to very concretely visualize where this operation took place. We are also working in the field of history and part of related to some very concrete aspects of armed operation. I won't go into details because that is, I guess, something that you are currently not interested in. We can just, if we can stop and open this evidence selection just to show the audience how it looks like. So when I say that we are using multimedia, so we are trying to use not so many words, but to show very concretely the exhibits that are part of the court court fold or court file in this proceeding against Mirko Norac and Rahim Ademi. So we got the whole file that counts more than 7,000 pages. So we can click on just one of the, yes, to give wider audience a chance to see what has happened during this operation, and since they are not aware about the human rights violations that took place during this operation, to show how, in very concrete manner, what has happened during that operation. We can go back. We can you can scroll them, yes. So we are using, as you can see, different kind of graphic analysis to show formal and non-formal chain of command. We can go, yes, you can see that we are trying to visually represent the whole who was engaged during the operation. The operation lasted from 9 September until 17 September, so we are analyzing each day since we have court evidence for each day. What is very important for this narrative, that includes 3 videos that are proving the ethnic cleansing of Serb population in that area, surrounding area of city of Gospić. And these are original archival material from we got from the UN, concretely from the ICTY, and what we wanted to basically present is the voices of victims, together with a concrete visualization of the last day of the operation, during which complete destruction of the place occurred. We can go further on. I can send you the links, so if somebody is interested, you can go into details. And we can go. So you see the proceedings, you see the victims. And we can stop here. And maybe just scroll it a little bit down, yes. A little bit more. Yes, and we can stop. Yes. So you can see how the population looks today in these villages of Divoselo, Čitluk and Počitelj. So this is a rare example of the villages of the area that has been completely depopulated during the operation. But what makes this specific example very important is the fact that people didn't return. So today we have less than 10 people living in that area. We can just go a little bit up so I can show you the ethnic distribution. So you can see 3% of Serbs living currently, and we can go up there and to see during 1991 that more than 30% of Serbs were living there. So you can see the ethnic complete basically change in the population of Medački Džep area. We can go back to the presentation. Thank you. So just to wrap up, I will just give you, maybe it will be interesting to share and to know some tips and give you some tips and tricks on how we worked and how I worked on the Operation Storm. After tips and tricks, we will just briefly show the Operation Storm online exhibition. So as I hope you got a glimpse of it, we didn't use a lot of, we didn't wrote a lot of text in digital narrative, so the idea was to basically communicate in a very concrete manner. As you could see, we were using strong visuals, so the idea was to show the content through storytelling. Mixed media, so we combine photos, audio clips, videos to show basically to use diverse method on how to show the content we were analyzing. What is I'll show it in an online exhibition on Operation Storm that I have realized that young people, of course, don't want to watch videos that last for 20 minutes regarding Operation Storm, but they are quite interested to see the videos that last like for 3 minutes. We can go to the Operation Storm documentary stories. Yes. The next one. Yes. Also, I mentioned interactive elements. Yes, what is, yes, we can go a little bit, yes, scroll it down. So you can see here, so my idea was to basically show the kind of visually present folders of Hague Tribunal folders in a way that is a bit, let's say, suitable for social media campaigns. So you can extract each of these stories to have kind of a social media campaign. The stories we can go to the down. You can scroll down. We have been roaming. Yes. So to show, we can scroll. To give a very short story, documentary story, dokumentarna priča, about what has happened. This is the story about the victims of the Operation Storm. To show some photos that belong to archive material of court case Gotovina. Everything you can see in this narrative was took from the folder, the verdict of and the case of Gotovina and the others. And then we can scroll down. And to have a short video about what has happened with the people who have never returned to their homes after the Operation Storm. We can go now to conclude to the presentation. So you can see the example on how colleagues from the Serb National Council used this exhibition to create a social media campaign. So each of the stories was presented in the days before the 30th anniversary of the Operation Storm, and on the 5th of August they showed the whole exhibition. What maybe to conclude, want to say is that I think it's quite important if you want to work on the archives in terms of presenting them in a digital way, that it could be useful and suitable for working with groups of youth. When I say youth, I work only with young people from 18 to 30, since we are dealing with very complex issues of the consequences of the war that took place during the 1990s. In terms of, I just talked to a colleague during the lunch, so I'm dealing with the issues of the wars which are not so popular in Croatia, so I'm dealing with issues that don't go in line with the dominant narrative in which Croatia is perceived as an exclusive winner and the biggest victim of the war. So I'm as a human rights lawyer, I'm examining and trying to analyze the events and atrocities and the war crimes that were committed against the minority people in Croatia, in order to give kind of an activist and research contribution to fight and to oppose to ethno-nationalism that is very strong in the countries of post-Yugoslavia. And that's it. If you have any questions, please let me know.
I was just wondering because in the end you said that this is not the narrative that is the dominant one. So do you have any insights in how the website is perceived by the people?
Young people who are trying to go beyond national narratives are also very interested. Minority organizations are also very interested to hear more about this type of work. But when it comes to our politicians, there's no difference whether they are coming from the center-right or center-left political sphere. They all have very similar standpoints on how the war, so-called homeland war in Croatia, should be perceived. So through two main identities, as I formerly mentioned, through the identity of a winner and a victim. So whatever does not fit in these two narratives, in these two identities, in this official narrative, is not welcomed in Croatia.
I think you are challenging one of the dominant Croatian nationalist narratives, but at the same time, this reinforces a dominant Serbian nationalist narrative. In what way are they trying to use that or use your work?
So unfortunately, I didn't have time to show you the whole exhibition, but actually there are 6 stories. There's one story that is named Girl from Bruška, so that's the name of the village. And when you scroll and read about Girl from Bruška, you think that that's the story about one girl of Serb ethnicity. But in fact, that's a story about a girl that was wounded during the 1991 due to the aggression of Yugoslav People's Army and Army of Srpska Krajina in the 1991 in the surroundings of the city of Zadar. So this exhibition, and I outlined very concretely that the idea of that exhibition is to challenge the Serb narrative in Serbia and Croatian narrative in Croatia regarding Operation Storm. Because you have to know that Operation Storm in Croatia is perceived as, and is celebrated in Serbia, Operation Storm is commemorated. So we have completely different narratives about same operation. So this type of work goes beyond any kind of ethno-nationalist ideologies.
In your experience, did you ever have to deal with personal grief about talking about these specific arguments and topics? Sorry. And have you ever had the opportunity, the chance to deal with people who experienced by themselves these historical events, and how was the reaction?
Yes, that is the most important feedback I need. So the family of the victims is if I can be very open, it is the only feedback I'm interested in, truly interested in. So their feedback is something that motivates me. So I work a lot on the field. So I don't work just like desk research, and I work with youth mostly out of Zagreb, not in Zagreb exclusively, because Zagreb is a capital city, and youth is more engaged to know about the wars of the 1990s in terms that doesn't go into to state narratives way. So I work a lot with if you want, young people from Croatia, but young people of Serb ethnicity from Croatia as well, in Croatia, who are second generation, basically, but who are suffering very concrete consequences of the wars and are completely, basically, invisible in responsible dealing with the past in Croatia. So what is most, as you basically asked, their feedback is very positive, and they are, especially people who are now very old, us younger generation, I hope give them kind of a hope that their stories won't be forgotten. So that is, I think, very, very important, and the very concrete motivation on why this colleague of mine, Nicola, and I are so dedicated to work in this field.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay. My name is Nathan. I think I've met most of you now at this stage, but for those of you that I haven't, I am the Head of Exhibitions and Programmes at EPIC, the Irish Immigration Museum in Dublin. So I'm just going to briefly introduce the museum, some of our educational work and our programming, a couple of case studies that I think might be relevant for some of the work that you're doing here, and then hopefully you'll have some time for Q&A. So I'll try and fly through it so that we stick to schedule. So what is EPIC? For those of you who have never visited. So we're the Irish Immigration Museum. We're a cultural institution dedicated to preserving, interpreting and sharing stories of human mobility and cultural exchange. We're an award-winning independent not-for-profit museum that first opened in May 2016, so we'll celebrate our 10th birthday next summer. We're a specialist museum dealing with the story of Irish immigration, and our focus spans both the historic and the present day, taking a thematic approach to the cultural history of immigration. So about 1 in 4 of the individual stories that you'll see in the museum are living contemporary accounts. We explore and examine the unique global journey of the Irish people and the influence of the Irish diaspora. So that's obviously both second, third and fourth generation descendants from those original immigrants. When we also have an on-site partner at the Irish Family History Centre for genealogical research. So some of our visitors that come are members of that diaspora, and they're looking to find more about those connections. They want to commission research, or they want to do it themselves and work with experts to develop research packages. The long-term exhibition space is divided into 20 different galleries and 4 overarching themes. So migration, the means by which people left, motivation, those push and pull factors and why people chose to leave at particular times or go to particular places, influence, so not just the impact of first-generation immigrants, but also the diaspora and their descendants in a range of different fields, from sports and politics to music and beyond, and then connections. So how do those later generations stay connected with Ireland? Whether you're a first-generation immigrant living overseas or a descendant from someone who did, what are those cultural connections that keep you in touch with Ireland, with the islands, or with that heritage, and how does it vary right across the world? Every visitor to the museum actually gets a passport as well, so you have an opportunity as you travel through the exhibition to collect a series of stamps, a little bit like the digital watch that we've been using here. This is just to give you a couple of shots. So a little bit like the Migration Museum we're in now, we use quite a lot of interactivity, multimedia. We do have a physical collection of objects as well, but we find the interactive elements are one of the most important things that people remark on when they visit. That opportunity to connect, even if they're not particularly interested in the theme of migration, the approach that we take to engaging with information is consistent in all feedback that we've received for nearly a decade now. It's up there with the oral history accounts and the interactivity. Those are the 2 things that visitors most enjoy. Last year we welcomed just over 360,000 visitors to the museum, and we'd expect to reach 500,000 by 2030. Oh, sure. I'm just conscious of time. I'll take a breath. Just a couple of quick, these are some of our core local partners that we work with. So ourselves, the CHQ, we're based in a 200-year-old bonded warehouse in the Docklands in Dublin. So a point of departure for many Irish immigrants, but also a beautiful historic structure. The Family History Centre that I mentioned, an on-site genealogy centre for those that want to uncover their family roots. And the Jeannie Johnson, so this is a full-scale replica ship that's based just outside the museum, and it is an exact replica of the type of vessel that would have been used during the Great Famine to ferry Irish immigrants, particularly to Canada and the United States. So you can visit, it's a living history museum, a core partner and a joint ticket for us as well. So our education and learning programme. So during the last academic year, we had just under 33,000 Irish international students come to the museum. We're very fortunate to have received the Sanford Award for Heritage Education, been shortlisted for the Children in Museums Award, and we're an accredited Discovery Centre for Science Foundation Ireland. So these are some of the external partners or accreditation programs that we're enrolled in under our educational brief. We have a range of on-site and online resources, so tours, workshops for teachers, families and students. So that includes both pre- and post-visit material, history at home packs, bilingual posters, and pre-recorded lectures. So not everybody can come. A lot of our audiences are overseas, so they can't always join in real time, so the pre-recorded material is very helpful. Our education and learning program is centered around active learning, providing engaging spaces where students progress their practical skills in communication, media, science, and the arts in particular. We focus on the power of stories and storytelling as a way to build empathy, and we work with learners to expand our shared understandings of Irish heritage. Our workshops aim to encourage active global citizenship through thematic content, exploring social issues such as the experience of minority groups, gender, migration, hidden histories, and human rights. And we have established a Teachers Ambassador program only last year, which holds biannual focus groups and feedback sessions. So this is a group of 12 external teachers from both primary and secondary school that we work with. We pilot new projects that we might want to do, new programs, new workshops. We consult with them in March and in August every year. We bring them all together at the museum to garner feedback outside of the other feedback systems that we have in place. And that's proved to be a very, very fruitful project. And the teachers seem to get quite a lot out of it too. And we grant free admission to all DESH schools. So these are schools from disadvantaged areas. So we do charge a small admission fee for our education program, which just goes back into the program. But for any schools that are in this classification, it's free. And we work with all of the local schools in the Dublin city centre, inner city, where we're located, for free. So they also have free access, and they work with us to pilot some of our new programs. So we have over 11 existing classroom packs. So these are kind of pre or post visit. There's usually a presentation, a workbook, and a poster. We have 4 thematic workshops, and they're all based around women's history is probably the most popular, science and genealogy, the Great Famine as well. That are delivered on site in the museum for schools, so they may do a self-guided tour or a guided tour. They'll also take part in a workshop on site. These are the evergreen offerings, they're always available. 3 different thematic guided tours, 2 self-guided tours, and we have 2 joint partner tickets. So one with the Jeannie Johnson, who I mentioned, another with the home of the national sports in Ireland, Croke Park, the GA. I just wanted to give a quick run through some of our, we call it a pipeline, but it's actually more of a circle really, just some of the kind of steps we utilize when we're developing a new material. So it could begin with consultation, it could be working with that Teachers Ambassador program, it could be working with schools, it could be working with the students themselves. That may lead to an idea, or an idea might originate within the museum. We'll consult widely, and then it will be drafted into new content, so that's aligning it with the existing curricula, looking at the audiences, identifying the age groups that it might work with. We have an internal pilot, so there are always at least 3 students working in the museum who are 15, 16 as part of transition year program. So they're based in a place of work for 1 to 2 weeks each at a time. We use them as part of an internal process, so we linked up with the Kids in Museums program, you're probably familiar with. So while they're based within the museum, we help give them an opportunity to work in every department, and they get to help consult and develop the new resources directly. So we get their opinions, and they get to do our jobs as well. So it's a great project. Going through design, an external pilot with one of those local schools that we work with so closely. There'll be a feedback iteration, a final adoption, and then a broader consultation and feedback loop as well. So it's an iterative process that never ends. One of the challenges that we had, and I think this case study is useful, there are over 200 Irish language schools based in Ireland. So these are schools that teach only through Irish. Most schools will teach Irish, but it's just one subject among many. In Gaelscoils or Gael Colachta, all subjects are taught through Irish. So these schools have a limitation on the resources for museums in particular, don't provide ready-made Irish language material for them. So we've worked with them, the COG, the national body that organise them and represent all of the schools. We've set up partnerships, so they translate the material, we work with them and their expertise, we align it with the curricula. We've made all of our pre and post visit packs available for free within this program as well that have been translated. You can see one we've done for Halloween just here, or Samhain as it's known in Ireland. And we have 6 of 11 already translated through this initiative at the moment, and we are now collaborating with them to develop new packs purpose-built for the Gaelscoils as well. So this has been a great opportunity for us. It's brought in an expertise we didn't have in-house. It's given us a new audience, a new platform, and then we've been able to back it up with Irish language tours, both self-guided and guided on site as well. So rather than excluding a group of 200 schools from the museum, it's now opened it up to a whole new audience that many other museums have not done. On the topic of education, so we had an exhibition we developed in partnership with the Irish Department of Foreign Affairs called Irish Teachers Abroad, Building Something Wonderful. It looked at 300 years of Irish educators overseas, but a subsection of this project was looking out with contemporary teachers, Irish teachers who are based overseas today, whether they're teaching English in Dubai, whether they're based in Britain, wherever it might be, and to engage them around their teaching practices. So it was a part oral history project where we got them to do video submissions, we got to take part with online and on-site interviews, through public collecting projects with them, and build up an archive of their material and their stories. And many of them feature then on the exhibition website, and some of them are featured on the physical exhibition as well. It's designed in such a way that the exhibition can tour to multiple different locations overseas simultaneously. So we were lucky enough to be able to bring the exhibition to the homelands of a lot of the teachers overseas. So they didn't have to come all the way to Dublin. And then next steps, we've got this is probably one of the most interesting projects we're working on at the moment. It's kind of at the final stages now. So we've been trying to find a way of bringing together migration, environmental sustainability, and art making into a single workshop. So this is our new pilot. So it's called Growing Together. It's a 3-part program delivered over 2 weeks in 3 sessions, which basically teaches children about the value of biodiversity and the role of plants in sustaining life, understanding the basic principles of sustainability and how to care for the environment, engaging in creative activities to express your knowledge of plants and ecosystems, and then experience the process of planting and the role of gardening in supporting biodiversity. So the first session is a lecture on the history of Irish diaspora involvement in biodiversity and conservation, particularly focusing on the life of Cynthia Longfield, a very well-known 20th century naturalist. But then it's looking at bringing in some practical experience with an external group called the Heritage in Schools program, where we bring in an external facilitator who will actually we do an hands-on activity where they build bug hotels and they do creative elements. We have a planter outside the building because we're right in the middle of the Docklands. There's not a lot of green space, but we have a few planters that are underutilised. So the final part of that program is the bug hotels will be installed there, and a series of natural plants and native species will be designed and installed in the planter by the students. So they'll do a hands-on planting experience, and it will be publicly displayed for over 1 year. So we'll be doing that in February coming up. So the local school we can only do 1 school at a time. This is a pilot, but if it works, we have 10 more. So next year we might be able to roll it out to a further 10, and they could be renewed on an annual basis. And we're hoping that it would gain a bit of capacity and start to spread out, and they might do it in local schools as well, so not just at the museum but right across the inner city. Like other museums as well, space is always a constraint, so we're in the middle of the first phase of a 4-phase 10-year redevelopment of all of our long-term exhibition spaces. So part of this is underway now. It will be finished by the 1st of March, the first phase. This is our long-term exhibition galleries. But in phase 2, we'll have a new dedicated education space on site within the museum as well. So this is going to be purpose-built, and it's being developed in collaboration with schools. So we're making sure that their needs are reflected in the physical space in the museum, not just in the activities that we undertake. And we've just revamped and redesigned all of the learning resources that we have on our website. So we have a new website just launched last week. So everything, all of the resources that I mentioned that have been translated, that have been made available, they're all free. They're not behind a paywall. They're not restricted. They're readily accessible to anyone who may or may not ever come to the museum. And we're adding to them every day as well. So you can access them. I have a link here at the end as well. You can look through our entire education program. So if I can't answer it today, you'll find it there. Thank you.
Can you measure which school, if a school is downloading this and is working with this and then is coming to visit the museum? Do you have
metrics for measuring it? Yeah, so we have 2. So for schools that book in, this is it's sent to them by email directly as well, so they can use it in advance, or they might come visit and then use it afterwards and do a class-based activity or a workshop on site. So we have metrics for all of those. We have metrics for all downloads as well. But we can't track individual schools that are just downloading it from the website unless they're getting in touch directly. We can see how popular they are. These packs are, they were also used for History at Home, so these can be used by families as well as by schools. The pre-visit packs are bigger. They have the poster, they have the presentation, and they have the workbook activities as well. So there's a little kit for them to use. So they can be downloaded and they're completely accessible on the website as well, but the pre-visit packs are only used by schools, really. The History at Home packs might be used by families during midterm break. They may be used by schools as well, or teachers for reference.
But do you mentioned 30,000 school students per year, and do you know how many download of those packs? The number is the same, or there are more?
No, not every school that comes in downloads the packs, so it depends on the profile. So all of these packs are pretty much aligned with the Irish school curricula, so all the curricula links tend to be for primary and secondary from Irish students. We also have international students, particularly in the summer, primarily from France, Spain and Italy, that come in that they wouldn't really use it. They would do an on-site workshop often, or they'll do a self-guided tour. It's part of a cultural enrichment program for them, so they come usually in the afternoon. They'll do a guided or self-guided tour, and they'll do an on-site workshop, but they very seldom will use the pack because it doesn't align with the program that they're enrolled in. They're primarily there to learn English, so it's a little different.
Okay. Normally, how long does it take?
It varies, so it depends on the project.
Like 1 year or?
No. I mean, we've developed. It depends what it is. If it's a new scavenger hunter trail in the museum, it can be pretty quick. If it's something like a whole new workshop or a whole new program, it can take a little bit longer. Like the sustainability program, we've been working on that since February. So it will launch 1 year later. But actually, the reason it isn't launching earlier is because we have to wait for the season. We have to wait for an opportunity to actually do the planting. So we have to wait for spring. For it to succeed. For the plants that we want to use, we have to wait for spring. So when we were starting out, we were a little bit naive. Like, we will launch in September. It'll start with the school year, and then the biodiversity experts, well, you won't be able to plant any of these things at that time of year because you need to wait for the thaw in Ireland. So that was one of the valuable insights from having a consultative process and not doing things in isolation. So a year would generally be the longest, I would say, for the process. Yeah.
Thanks.
So I work at Le Bois du Casier in Belgium, so I will explain why we deal with immigration, workers' immigration, and I will present 3 pedagogical tools that we design. So Le Bois du Casier is located in Belgium, in Wallonia, in the south part of Belgium, where the coal fields were. It was a place with a lot of industries, so we need also a lot of workers. We started the extraction of coal at Le Bois du Casier in 1822, and we can say that it was an ordinary coal mine, like we had many at that time in this area. It was ordinary coal mine until the 8th of August 1956, where a big disaster happened, and 262 miners died. They came from 12 different countries, and 36 were Italians, so most of them. So to understand why we have so many Italians in 1956, we need to go back at the end of the Second World War. After the war, we need to restart the economy in Belgium, so we need coal, so we need workers. So the Belgian government tried to find Belgian workers, but even if they gave new advantages for them, Belgium didn't want to go back to the mine. So we asked for foreign workers, and we made an agreement with Italy. In 1956, Italy will send us workers, and we will sell them coal if they need it. So I go back to the Bois du Casier history. We didn't stop the extraction after the disaster. We stopped in 1967, and because of the disaster, because of the story of the site, a lot of Italian associations, citizens, politicians asked to safeguard the site, and we reopened in 2002 as a cultural site. So now we have 3 museums. We have the Glass Museum, because the industry of glass was very famous in the past. We also have the Industrial Museum and the 8 August area, where we speak about immigration, we speak about the work and the life of the miner, and of course the disaster. So in 2007, we became a member of the International Coalition of Sites of Conscience. And in that framework, I went to the United States, and I I did a seminar with immigrant American museum, and they show me a lot of dialogue activities to make dialogue with the children. So when I came back, we decided to design this totem with 4 posters, and there we speak about migration. So immigration and immigration. So we decide to open, before the adhesion, we just spoke about immigration from 1946 to 1956, about Italian immigration. So thanks to this coalition, we decided to speak about migration, but more general migration. So we did a new guided tour, and the first part of the guided tour, it's an historical tour, and we explained that the first migration, it's just the settlement of the earth, like here, it's the first panel on this museum also. We explained that in the 19th century, when we needed manpower in the industrial area, it's always a local migration. It's people from the countryside who was coming to the industrial area. In the middle of the 19th century, it was a lot of Flemish people who came from the north of Belgium to the south of Belgium, because in the north it was an agricultural area. And in 1845, there were a bad weather with a very bad harvest. So they were happy to find a job with a stable payment earning. During the 2 World Wars, we had Polish and Italians workers who came. And as you have said, in 1946, we did an agreement with Italians. So the visit didn't stop in 1956, because after the disaster, because we couldn't have Italian people, we signed new agreement with Spain, Greece, Morocco, Turkey, Tunisia, Algeria, Yugoslavia. In the 1970s, we had a very bad time, and so we decided to stop the immigration in 1974. I show you a lot of dates, but you will see it's important to read. So already during this part of the tour, we already engaged discussion with the students about racism, about different topics. But it's after the historical tour, this animation is 2 hours long. So the first hour is historic tour, and the second one is the activities, and I will show you the main activities that we use. So the first activities, it's a discussion based on a movie. It's called A Giraffe in the Rain, and it's a giraffe who has to leave Africa to come in Mirzapolis. So Mirzapolis is the city of dogs. So you will see, it symbolizes, you will see. So you can, yes, I can't show you the whole movie, it's 12 minutes, but the first 2 minutes. So, yeah, no. But it's available on YouTube. You just have to put sur la route avec... non, une girafe sous la pluie, and you will find the end of the story. But I have some pictures. So, it's a wordless movie, so that is, you can use, so. Yes, it's just that the Mirzapolis, for us, we know that it's Belgium because you saw the village in the rain. Everybody will tell you, every Italians who came to Belgium will say it was raining the first day where I was in Belgium. So it's easy to identify that we are speaking about Belgium. So we already saw that the giraffe is too tall. She doesn't have the cultural code. She didn't like the food because she used to eat leaves and not the dog food. She has difficulty to find a job. And it's very interesting because when she's going to the administration, it's a robot. So everywhere in the story, it's always dogs with many shapes, many different shapes. But when it's the administration, it's a robot. But the story, she finished by found a job where she was very skilled, and she had friends, but the administration decided that she can't stay. So the story ends quite badly, but because she can't find a place, because she can't go back in her country, but she can't stay in Belgium. So it's very interesting because it's a simple way to engage dialogue with the children. We use also with adults because it's a very nice movie. But in 12 minutes, we have all the topics that you can deal with. The second pedagogical tool that we use, it's a timeline game. So we gave to the young people cards with an event on it, the name of an event, and we ask them to put the good card at the good place on the timeline. So I will see if you listen to me quite well. So we always start by the easiest card. Okay, when happened the disaster of Le Bois du Casier? Okay, good, 1956. The other one is quite easy. When happened the agreement between Italy and Belgium? 46. Okay, good. This is the agreement with Morocco and Turkey. 1970. The game is already interesting now because we can already discuss with the student to say, no, but Turkish, you know, that is after Italians, and we can already give information. So it's 1974. 64, sorry. It's when I spoke about the Flemish people who came to Wallonia because they have a very bad harvest. Do you remember the dates? Ha. 16, usually, perfect. Yeah. And we also gave a card that we didn't speak about during the tour. It's just to address a new topic with them. So it's in 2004. Yes. So just this activity is already interesting because like that, people, the young people just study the dates and all the immigration waves. But it's also interesting. The first time I made the game, I didn't have the card at that time. I just put the date. And I was doing this activity with newcomers and French learners. And I asked them to put their own story in the big story. So we spoke the micro story and the micro story. And so it was a very interesting game because they put almost everywhere the paper. But I tested 2 weeks ago with young people, and even if they were from a foreign background, they didn't know the story of their family. So it was very interesting, and so the activity was to open their mind and to tell them, okay, now you go back home and you will ask. You have a Flemish name, you have an Italian name. You need to know what happened, if it's your grandfather, or because he was a minor, or because another reason he came to Belgium. So it's again a very nice activity to open discussion. My last tool, it's Toes from Below. It's a virtual reality experience that we just made thanks to a European project. And the participant has a mask, and he will go down the mine. But it's Michele Cicora, it's an orphan of the disaster, who will guide him. So he will appear different times in the games to give information about his story or about his father's story. So this is the beginning. Michele explained about the agreement between Italy and Belgium. Then he takes his lamp and he goes underground. The participant is interactive. They can use their hands in the game, so it's quite fun for children and for the adults. The participant will meet some miners, and he will listen stories. One is about the homesick of the immigrants. We also discover a barrack, and a player has to pack a parcel to send to Italy, and after he's going to Italy. And again, on the frame, on the table, Michele explained that his father was sending a lot of letters. He wanted to know everything about the children who stay in Italy. The last two scenes is about the disaster and the contract, because after the disaster, we had new rules about safety in the mine. So to conclude, since we are member of the coalition of Site of Conscience, we really want to address a contemporary issue. It's very important for us to give new point of view, to new ideas, new insight to our visitors. Like that, they can go back home with an open mind. And to conclude, to be honest, I hesitated before to come because of the impact of the climate change on migration. So I really hope my presentation was interesting and worth it. Thank you.
Do you visit the museum? So if you do like the timeline activity, yeah. So do you first visit the site and then you do the activity, or is something that you do like today we are doing the timeline and
after we made an exhibition it's working? We made an exhibition about immigration, and so during this exhibition we designed a lot of new educational tools. So after we kept the best one to use in our museum and for everyday tour.
So you do a tour in the exhibition about migration, and then you do that?
Yes, okay. Yes, because it's always linked to the site and the history of the site. So we always want to provide an historic aspect, and after we design, maybe today I will go back and I will say, this museum, they are doing this, and we will...
so it's kind of half and half.
Yes.
I was wondering, in practical terms, how did you do this virtual reality content? You work with people that used to do this, and who gave the content, and how was that process?
So it was a European project. It was a 3-year project, and we were 3 museums from Site of Conscience. We work with the Childhood War Museum in Sarajevo. We work with Gulag CZ in the Czech Republic. And each site was linked to a designer, a game designer. So we designed 3 very different games. And so Le Bois du Casier was sending all the historical contents. And our designer, Cosa Creation, made the game. But so it was quite difficult because it's difficult for us as a museum, and we want a very strict reality to do, okay, it's a game. For example, in the beginning of the game, they wanted us to, the player has to be in a closed room, so they put in a cage. But we are in the beginning of the game, and we didn't go yet to the lamp room. So the lamp room is always on the surface. And for us, it was very difficult to say, okay, let's go, we will be in a cage, but we will still on the surface. So, but for the participant, it's quite details, but for us, it's quite very important.
Yeah.
But we just finished the project here in the 1st of October, so we had quite 200 people who already tested, and they love it. So I say, okay, if it's not perfect for the historic and content. Wow. But it was possible because Europe paid for it.
I was just wondering, thank you for the presentation. Do you, in your museum, do you critically approach to these bilateral agreements? Do you, in terms of geopolitical context of that time?
Yes. Often, when, for people, it was just we exchange men to coal. And for information, we never sent coal to Italy. So we just kept the workers because Italy didn't need it, okay? And,
I'm sure.
Nobody okay. But it's, so it's very, very important we put this agreement in the context. We need to re-explain that what was the life in Italy. We need to re-explain that the Italian government wants to be nice with European countries because of the war. But it's still, and it's war, because nowadays Italians are very well integrated in Belgium. But so it's important to remember, to explain to the children that at that time there were a lot of racism against Italians. So we try to stay balanced between we will explain the story.
So very glad to be here with you today. So for those who weren't there this morning, I'm Elise Albank. I'm the Director of Economic, Institutional and International Development in the Palais de la Porte Dorée. And along with Emily, who is head of exhibition, we will present you the way we worked with young people and teachers for our latest exhibition, whose name is Banlieue Chérie, which means beloved suburbs. And we choose this subject because this exhibition was our most popular exhibition since the opening of the museum, and also because it was, for us, a good example of how we work with children and how we conceive a project inside the Palais de la Porte Dorée. So before getting in the heart of the matter, I will briefly introduce who we are, if we don't know the place. So the Palais de la Porte Dorée is this monumental building. It's a masterpiece of Art Deco architecture of the 30s, but is also a building of colonial propaganda, because it was built for the 1931 international colonial exhibition in Paris. So since the construction of the building, we have a tropical aquarium in the basement of the building. So this aquarium has completely changed his narrative because it was from exploiting spaces in the 30s, and now it's preserving them and to raising awareness of all the audience about protection of environment and also biodiversity issues. So since 2007, the building has also been hosted the National Museum of History of Immigration. So the mission of the museum is to remind visitors the long history and the diversity of migration in France, and to study the past to shed light on the present. And the present time are really important also in our museum. So it's a challenge, but we try also to raise these topics of the present time. And we try to have the right position to give information and not to be committed, but not to influence the way people think. We try to let all the people express their own opinion, but yeah, this is challenging, this position. Maybe one, yeah, maybe you can go back. And I think one of the museum's key features is that the collection has been built around three complementary approaches and collections. So the history collection with archives, drawings, photographs. Also the testimonies and society. Right at the beginning of the museum, it was very important for us to collect some objects and testimonies from people or children of people who have lived the migration. And also the contemporary art is very important right from the beginning, because we think that art is also a way to have a maybe wider view of all the topics around migration's issue. And maybe one of the great strengths today of the museum, I think, because I'm quite new in the museum. I joined the museum 1 year ago, and I think one of the strengths is our ability to attract a young audience. One of 2 visitors is under the age of 25 in the museum, and when you look at the museum in Paris, it's not these figures, so it's, I think, very important for us. We are free for people under 25, so it explains also, it's an explanation, but most of the museum, the National Museum, are also free for the people under 25, so it's not the only reason. And maybe I forgot to tell that we are a national museum, and we are funded mostly by public funding. So this is important to have this information too. And yes, just to finish, we also offer a wide range of educational activities, as well as a full cultural program of shows, concerts, conferences, debates, and workshops. And now it's very important to consider that we want to make this building, whose history is quite complex, a very wide, open place and a welcoming place for everyone. And our name is interesting because we are Palais de la Porte Dorée, which means the door. And we want to have this door open to everybody. So now I will let Émilie explain in detail how we work on this project, Banlieue Chérie. And yes, it's your turn.
I don't think, yes? It's, oh, sorry. Our exhibitions have the specificity to combine historical and scientific information and data with a sensitive experience through the discovery of artworks and testimonies. We are convinced that to reach the public, especially young people, the story we are telling must be embodied. Banlieue Chérie is a perfect example of this balance we try to reach each time. To achieve this to achieve this objective, our method must often consist of choosing an artistic curatorial team which will conceive the content of the exhibition, and adding a scientific council whose mission is to provide the main direction and research areas to control the scientific informations. After several meetings between these two collaborating entities, the curators draft the synopsis from which the various departments of the institution will begin to work on, and especially the educational projects. The exhibition of Banlieue Chérie, the subject was the history of French suburbs from the late 19th century to nowadays. The theme of immigration is therefore not the primary focus of this exhibition, even though it is treated in certain sections, as there are areas have close ties to the history of the immigration. Our museum's mission is not only to tell the story of immigration, but also to change perceptions of person who is discriminated against. And suburbs, popular suburbs in France, are often misrepresented by the media and subject to numerous bias. So it seems important to us to change the way we view these territories, which we work with often. The aim was to see the multiplicity and diversity of these areas and to hear their voices, to let them tell their own histories. And this is the guiding principle that shaped the design of this exhibition and the educational project as well. Yes. The artistic approach consisted in particular of showcasing artists working with local residents in suburbs, or literally using elements from these areas, thus allowing the public to be as close as possible to these places and those who inhabit them. For example, this artist, Alexia Fiasco, worked with residents. She took blocks of rocks providing from a building that has been destructed, and then she exchanged with the residents and who tells their stories. And then they took, she took a picture and put the picture on the rocks. I don't know if it's very clear, but okay. So this is an example. This is another example. All the furniture here provided from different apartments of residents. And in the same way, the artist took pictures of this apartment before and after their moving, and recreate an apartment with all this furniture and pictures. And it was in the center of the course, and the visitors can go on in the apartment and can see some videos of these apartments and can just see how all these residents were so, sorry, I can't find my words, attached to their apartments and their sites. Sorry? Okay. And the title of the exhibition is a synthesis of these different aims. It traduces an affectionate address to these territories that immediately signals this multiplicity of perspectives. That's the reason why we choose the plural and not just suburb, but suburbs. And the subtitle, "The Exhibition That Reframes Cliché," clarifies our desire to deconstruct prejudices. To enrich the offerings made to the public within the framework of our exhibitions, many departments, so this is not a sexy slide, I'm sorry, but this is our organigram, and many departments within the institution are working on projects in the project of the exhibition. And for example, we tested for the first time for this exhibition the first visitor committee with the Department for Communication and Public. A panel of 10 visitors and non-visitors has been chosen to react to the synopsis, the title, the text, so that we can adjust the contents if needed, or prepare language elements to explain our approach. And it was a great surprise, for example, when we asked them their proposal for a title, because it was almost the title we chose. It was Dear Banlieue, and not Dearest Banlieue, but it was Dear Banlieue. So we realized that we were on the right direction. The institution has also what we call liaison teacher, who have a role of relay with external teachers in education, and their main missions are providing pedagogical support for all the exhibitions, creating training and resources, and act as intermediaries between teachers and education authorities, informing the school community of available activities and resources. For Banlieue Chérie, we created also a mediation space, educational space, I think. For example, we have this table with Lego to create their dreaming city. There was a search, I don't know if we can see it, yes. Here we had a search and find game. We had a reading area with books and comic books. We have a listening zone featuring a text on a suburb. And an expression wall. Yes. An expression wall, which was interactive. The exhibition visitors, particularly young people from Paris and the surrounding suburbs, embraced this initiative very well. The initiative also received press coverage. There was this sheets of paper bearing the heading "In my dream suburb, I can," 3 points, and then the participants gave their first name and then put the text they want to express. And we collected more than 8,000 words and said that, and it was decided that these words would be added to the museum's collection. And this is a way to involve our young public and to know them better. I've almost finished. For each exhibition, the educational department realized a booklet for the 7-12 years old, which involved young public in their visit, and we create children's course dispatch in the exhibition. It's composed of texts written from a child's perspective about emblematic work from the history of the suburbs. The texts have been read before by a class from primary school of students before being validated in the institution. I don't know if it's very clear. Okay. In the context of some events at the Palais, the educational department proposed some unusual visits to young people, like this one, which was with a dancer. We also offered a shared listening space with a playlist of about 60 tracks related to the suburbs. It was a transgenerational space that was very successful. And we propose mobile exhibitions which are a declination of our physical exhibition, and they are presented in schools and other external places like libraries or other places like this. And this is your turn for conclusion.
It is not finished. But it's nearly finished. Yeah, to conclude, and this is a good transition with this mobile exhibition, because for this exhibition, we have worked a lot with a partner in all the suburbs of Paris, and we will present you. Maybe you can go to the previous one. Okay, it disappeared. The slide, it's okay. It was the poster of the exhibition. So we developed an innovative educational project, many different projects, but I will present only one, involving an artist residency in a middle school. And we have carried this project with the city of La Courneuve, which is in North Paris, nearly 30 minutes from the outskirts of Paris. And in this city, you have a large social housing building. So the subject was particularly echoing with their own local history. And just to explain this visual, we have strong ties with the local town around the Palais de la Porte Dorée, and this exhibition was really an opportunity to showcase also this tie and to take them further. So the project was developed in partnership with the city, but also with the department to which the city belongs, and also with the Créteil, so the regional school district. This is the next, the next slide. Sorry. This project involved six classes. The goal, the aim of the project was to create an exhibition about the local area, but echoing our exhibition. And it was the opportunity for the student to discover how to make an exhibition from the beginning to the opening. So it was also an opportunity to discover the different jobs you have to do an exhibition and the different stages to make it. So to do this, we firstly choose to give them 3 guided tours. Of course, the exhibition, Banlieue Chérie, but also the permanent exhibition in our museum, and also a tour of the city collections, because their city have their own collection, archives, and also contemporary art. Then they use this material to work with 5 artists from the exhibition. And the artists have been coordinated by one of the exhibition curators, whose name is Oria Maklouf. And the students, so this is one of the artists, and this slide is quite funny because this is a kind of auto-portrait of him when he was a child. And so we play with this comparison. because the artists also explain why they are becoming artists, why they express with their art, and etc. The students realize a real exhibition, and they also imagine the narration of the exhibition. They create some artworks. So they use artworks from the collection of their city, but they also create their own artworks. They mix everything. They create the labels, the poster of the exhibition, and for the opening, they also acted as a museum educator for their family and for their friends. And of course, the city and the department help us to promote the exhibition, to communicate on the exhibition, and to make it a public exhibition for a few weeks. We have videos. So the video is in French because we are very French for the moment. And it's 8 minutes, so we won't show you the old videos, but I think it's interesting to see the 2 or 3 first minutes of the video. So this is the visit at the beginning of the project.
Et la petite oreillette là, sur l'oreille, à droite ou à gauche, l'accrochez sur votre oreille. D'accord.
Le projet, c'est un projet en partenariat entre donc, le Palais de la Porte Dorée, le Conseil départemental de la Seine-Saint-Denis et la ville de la Courneuve pour créer une exposition avec 6 classes de CM2. On les a fait venir au Palais pour qu'ils se rendent compte des espaces, de ce que ça représente. Et le but, c'était de faire traverser tous ces élèves les métiers d'un musée et d'un montage d'exposition.
L'idée, c'était de voir comment et pourquoi on pouvait raconter des histoires à partir de ce grand truc qu'on appelle l'art et dont on a tendance à faire croire à plein de gens que c'est pas pour tout le monde.
Trois classes par école, 2 classes dans chaque école qui sont des classes artistes-médiateurs qui donc créent des œuvres et ensuite vont les présenter. Et une 3e classe qui est, elle, la classe commissaire qui donc choisit des œuvres à exposer et puis crée les cartels et puis donc présente ses œuvres.
Un dispensaire, en tout cas, il y a un lien avec le docteur. Un dispensaire, c'est là qu'on va guérir les gens malades.
J'ai commencé par leur montrer des images d'œuvres qui m'ont été confiées par les différents services avec lesquels on a travaillé.
Vous voulez qu'on mette les 2 images à côté?
Ah ouais, on dirait un carrosse.
On voit quand même qu'il y a un immeuble qui ressemble à des immeubles qu'on connaît déjà.
Si on dit une auberge de jeunesse, il y a des jeunes, ils vont dedans.
On leur a montré des œuvres issues de la collection d'art contemporain du Conseil départemental de Seine-Saint-Denis. On leur a montré des objets issus des collections patrimoniales de la Courneuve. On leur a montré des cartes postales, on leur a montré des anciens plans, on leur a montré des tableaux, des objets, etc.
Et les élèves étaient super réactifs directement à parfois faire des jeux de cette différence entre la Courneuve, à quoi ça ressemblait avant, qu'est-ce qui a changé, qu'est-ce qui est resté. Et on a joué à ça, à faire des listes d'œuvres qu'on a inscrites sur les tableaux, de choses qu'on voulait raconter, de choses qu'on a essayé de retrouver dans les collections, de quels étaient nos endroits préférés, de comment on pourrait imaginer comment c'était avant, de se rendre compte un peu de toute l'évolution des territoires dans lesquels on circule.
La Courneuve est une ville où plein de gens sont riches et d'autres gens sont SDF.
C'est vrai que le point de départ, c'était de se dire on va faire une exposition sur l'histoire de la Courneuve. On imaginait quelque chose d'assez linéaire, de chronologique, et puis c'était sans compter les enfants qui ont commencé à partir dans...
I was just curious to know when you approached the residents you were working with from the banlieue, how did they react? Or, yeah, how was the point of entry with them?
But we took a lot of time to meet a lot of cities around Paris. Some of them at the end decide not to partnership with us. Some of them decide to do something and to organize a visit from their inhabitants. So it was really a different approach, but we took a lot of time to meet them. And of course, the people in charge of the link with the association and local actors help us to organize this meeting. But at the beginning, it was not, very clear method, and we just meet them and exchange and make them react on the project, and so we took some time to do that. And for the exhibition, it was more, maybe you can explain for the exhibition, but for the exhibition, it was more the choice of the artists themselves, also the creating team to choose not all the people, but some people who have some connection with these territories. And so the choice of the people working on our exhibition are also important for this matter.
So you mentioned the function of the building, which was built for the International Colonial Exhibition in 1931. I was wondering how you deal with such a difficult past of the building. It's a difficult heritage. Are you have a kind of like the exhibition, or you mention it? Is yeah.
We contextualize the monument. We tell the story. Yes, it's a very it's very difficult because when the public arrives in the monument, it's so spectacular that everybody took selfies, and but when you start to look at what it's represented on the facade or on the walls, it's really terrifying. So we have some educational staff, and they contextualize the monument and explains to students what it means. We are still working on this matter, because the first goal of the museum was really the history of immigration, and it was hosted in this building, but a little bit by chance. And at the beginning of the history of the museum, the people don't want to look at the building in a way. And now we will celebrate the 100th anniversary of the construction. So we decide to have some historian working with us to explain. So we have some educational tools, of course, some visits, but it's not obvious when you enter inside the building. You have to reserve, to book your visit if you want to have the explanation on the building, but you have some panels, but it's not really obvious. So we are working on this matter because it's very a tricky issue, and we want to have the right approach and to be able to explain the context also. This is exactly the subject you have explained. And another way to do is also to use contemporary art and also the cultural program to question the building. We organize some festival called L'Envers du Décor, so it's behind the scene, and some proposition will, question all the decoration you have, and maybe. In 6 years, so we have time to. And maybe another thing we can mention, because you mentioned also the climate change, and so we also opened an exhibition a few weeks ago, whose name is Migration and Climate. Sorry for my English. And for the first time, we organize an exhibition in our exhibition space, but also in the aquarium. And it's also a way to use this building and to connect the history, even if it's not exactly the same history, colonialism and immigration. We have some links, so so it's also a way to connect with the building and to assume, in a way, this building and to use it as an educational tools also, because we have to.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I asked this question because in most of the cases, if you have this kind of building, then you would have the separate museum related to such a heritage, exploring where we are and how to break the whole context. So it's also challenging, but on the other hand, this being immigration museum in such a place, it's also kind of, I don't know, but mandatory link which you have to face somehow. So yeah, thank you.
Just maybe a suggestion. Maybe you can completely embrace the history of the building and maybe organize a lecture and give youth or wider audience a chance to repaint the new type of frescoes, just to give the frame of the front door and to give chance to the youth and to the wider audience to draw or to paint something which is built on human rights, on progressive values. Therefore, you give a chance to reshape and rethink the front line of the museum.
Yeah, there was a kind of idea like that, because we have a wall on the museum with all the name of French colonialists, and we have another wall with not finished. So we imagine that maybe we can do something on this wall, but our building is an historical classified building. So, but we had this kind of ideas, of course. Yes, thank you.
For those unfamiliar with me, my name is Elias Braun. I'm a member of the Migration Lab Germany, which facilitates the research and assessment component of this project. And I'm currently an associate at the Institute of Special Education at the Institute of Koblenz, where I'm at the University of Koblenz, where I'm working on my doctorate at the Chair of Special Education with a focus on learning and inclusion. This institute studies learning disabilities and the segregation of students with disabilities within the German educational system. The Institute for Special Education is the youngest research facility of the youngest university in Germany, and as a matter of fact, we just celebrated our opening ceremony exactly 1 week ago. Originally, I started my career at the University of Hildesheim, where I worked for Professor Viola Georgi and focused on diversity education and inclusion. More generally, my disciplinary background is the philosophy of education, philosophy of difference, and theories of knowledge, pedagogical anthropology, as well as ethnography, and I'm also interested in psychoanalytic pedagogy. I was kindly given the opportunity to talk to you today about a topic that's very dear to me, which is therefore a central part of my doctoral research. This topic might be best designated by the title Anthropologies of Relation. Now, given the importance of family history within this project, one might be inclined to think that I ought to talk about genealogy. One might infer from such a title that I'm going to talk about friendship or kinship relations with within the context of migration. However, for me, with a background in philosophy and pedagogy, anthropology primarily refers to the old question, what is man? Which today may be better posed as the question, what is a human being? Without getting into much detail here, the question of what constitutes a human being was and still is a very relevant question for both curators and museal educators and teachers. Curators who present objects from different cultures provided curators who present objects from different cultures, for example, must be very diligent in how they represent those cultures, provided they don't want to present a specific group of humans as essentially or naturally different or perhaps as inferior. A familiar danger which is exemplified in the endurance of colonial discrimination within exhibition, lastly described by von Oswald, for example. Teachers must engage with the question, what is a human, simply because they're supposed to educate them. As teachers, we need to have some, often very tacit and implicitly or hidden concept of what a student is or should be in order to engage with them on a professional level, right? Teachers who teach students from different cultures, for example, must be very diligent in how they represent those cultures if they don't want to present or understand them as essentially and naturally different and perhaps as inferior to other students. I see. Yeah. Both the curator and the teacher have a similar problem then. They are faced with a similar danger of creating what I may preliminarily call an essentialized and naturalized anthropology or theory of what a human ought to be. Because of this, I will do 3 things. Yeah. First, I will develop an anthropological account that proposes an alternative to everyday or common sense answers to the question, what is a human being? I will do so by using this year learning arrangement, too much Erasmus, this year learning arrangement, in which we are all situated right now as an example. Second, I will argue that educational practices in general, so educational practices in school or at the museum, like everywhere, that educational practices in general should be understood via this account. I will argue this by briefly comparing 2 didactical models and by discussing some real ethnographical examples of educational practices within German classrooms and schools. Thirdly, I will elaborate on the psychoanalytical consequences of this anthropological account for the youth work of current and in the future. And on the pedagogical problems in working with students who experienced discrimination. I will do so by providing a model for inclusion, which I will explain by drawing on an example of 2 parents. Right. So let us start by developing an alternative account of anthropology, or an alternative way to answer the question, what is a human being, by analyzing this learning arrangement in which we are all situated right now. This with the goal of escaping an essentialist and naturalizing understanding of anthropology. In everyday life, we tend to explain interactions or human relations between people via an implicit image where certain humans have certain intentions and act according to these intentions. According to this everyday model of relation, this moment may be explained by me consciously intending to give a talk and you consciously intending to listen to it. That's certainly how it feels like, right? Right. These intentions need no further inquiry, since they seemingly arise on their own accord. We feel like we independently decide our actions as if it is our nature to decide freely in this moment whether we should stay or leave or break into dance and so on. But perhaps by me explicitly talking about this everyday model that's usually tacit or implicit, I've already aroused your suspicion. Certainly, we don't do as we please. there are certain customs and norms in place. Consider this. Imagine I were to break into an interpretive dance right now, symbolizing what I ought to tell you about discrimination today. Surely, some of you, I would probably raise some eyebrows doing that. And I, for one, can attest to the fact that I very much feel compelled not to act out an interpretive dance in front of you all right now. But why? There seems to be certain customs and norms in place, pattern of behavior according to which I must act in order to be viewed by an audience like you as a professional educational scientist. A scientist whose presentation is of any value to you. Such a norm, for example, was me just a few minutes ago referring to my academic affiliations as a mode of authorization. Which I was implicitly trying to present myself as a researcher from an interesting new institute. I'm trying to make the point that I must act a certain way in order to be perceived as a certain someone. The same goes for you, of course. In order for you to be perceived as a good listener and a successful participant of today's event, you need to act a certain way. For example, by looking at the front, making notes, or looking at the paper, or diverting your attention or focusing your attention on the front or to the subject matter being talked about. So me addressing you as listener and you correspondingly readdressing me as a speaker seems to have, already, at the very least, an impact on our behavior, right? And therefore, I think it's fair to posit that we may not be as independent from each other as our everyday anthropological idea of ourselves would make us think. This, since we have established that in this moment, whether we perceive to be what we perceive to be our inner being is affected by the others around us. This learning environment, of which we are all part of in this moment, is therefore far more complicated than an arrangement of inner beings. On the contrary, this learning environment seems to emerge from a very complex web of relations between us. Now, if we were to radicalize this point, or radicalize this perspective, one may ask why we should posit an inner being in the first place, and not view the whole of ourselves as something emerging out of our relation to others. Such a radicalized idea of a decentralized self may be hard to accept at first, precisely because it goes against our everyday understanding of ourselves as individuals who may express their identity via their own personal freedom. However, such an idea may be more acceptable when we think about our dependence on others within the context of our loved ones. These significant others, as Axel Honneth calls it, these significant others and our relation to them may be understood then as an intrinsic part of ourselves. Right. So what I tried to show here is actually extremely simple. Instead of explaining human relations by drawing upon an anthropological answer to the question, what is a human being, we turn the question around, and so instead of explaining human relation by an inner being, we explain an inner being by human relation. The "of" in this talk's title, Anthropologies of Relation, may therefore be understood as a possessive, as anthropology derives from and is subordinated to relations. This is precisely here. It's precisely here where I can do away with, where we can do away with essentialist or naturalized differences between human beings, since these differences may only result from an actively practiced form of relations. Yeah, so in philosophy, such an argumentation is called recognition theory. Please note that this is quite confusing in English, since recognition means literally everything. Recognition can mean many different things in English, as Ricoeur worked out. I, however, use recognition analogous with the German concept of Anerkennung. Recognition theory is not new. The idea that we gain ourselves from others was, for example, prominently described in Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit, originally published in 1807. So it's quite a while ago, right? One of and the Phenomenology of Spirit was, I think, one of the most influential books in modern philosophy. One of the most prominent contemporary theorists who present a recognition theory is the feminist theorist Judith Butler. She undertakes exactly the same thought process as we just did when she writes in her 1990s book Gender Trouble. It would be wrong to think that the discussion of identity ought to proceed prior to a discussion of gender identity, for the simple reason that persons only become intelligible through becoming gendered in conformity with recognizable standards of gender intelligibility. So, a bit more differently formulated, a person's gender identity is assigned by others who recognize, and that's recognition theory for you, a person via standards of gender intelligibility. These standards consist of certain norms, customs, and practices that designate a person to a gender. While such an anthropology of relation was later extrapolated to be a more general social theory, for example by Schatzky in 1996, we may see in Butler what we already saw within this learning environment. There are certain social positions that entail certain norms and ways of being, and what these social positions imply and who is to take them is a question fundamentally linked to power. Alas, we have arrived at the second stage of my talk, where I will argue that educational practices within this project should be understood via this account of an anthropology of relation. Maybe you can already infer why such an anthropology of relation has drastic implications for education. If a person is constituted by the recognition of others, and this recognition is mediated by an array of pre-existing social norms, we may reconsider what it means to grow into this world. We may imagine a child asking us a question originally posed by Butler in Undoing Gender. Who can I become in such a world where the meanings and limits of the subjects are set out in advance for me? By what norms am I constrained as I begin to ask what I may become? And what happens when I begin to become that for which there is no place within the given regime of truth? These questions, however, relate to the whole of the social and to growing up in a society in general. To ask them is valid in literally every social setting, from the maternity ward to the hospice. As educators, so teachers, museum educators, curators, however, we must ask these questions as relating specifically to education. To understand the meanings and limits of the subjects and the norms constraining becoming within education, we may look at what education actually entails. For this, I and many other German educational scientists follow Klaus Prange, who remarked, demonstrating or showing something to someone, like what I'm doing right now, is at the very heart of any educational operation. So from an educational standpoint, the question must be posed how a person may be recognized within a human relation in which someone is showing something to someone. Klaus Prange himself posited a very simple didactical model to describe how education operates, which we may think of as a simple triangle. Now it's a Latin, of course, because it's a very smart guy. So as you can see, education is understood here operationally as an interplay of educator, child or student, and the subject matter. How these three aspects interplay constitutes the form of the educational operation. Now you may see from the Latin names that Prange viewed them as a cause. The child and the educator and the subject matter are in themselves a cause of the educational operation. Indeed, Prange in 1978 presents us with a very, very, very long book and quite an extensive anthropology. Trust me, I did. Which explains this causation by an inner being of both educator and child, which he's developing by drawing upon the philosophical anthropology of Immanuel Kant. So this model would be quite opposite to our conception of an anthropology of relation, because it explains the educational relations by positing an inner being. In 2009, Norbert Ricken proposed an alternative model, which was based on recognition theory. And that model became very influential within German educational theory and ethnographical qualitative research within German educational science. Ricken proposed recognition theoretical underside. Excuse me. Ricken proposed a recognition theoretical underside of the triangle we just saw. Within this model, the act of showing something to someone is understood as an act of recognizing someone as a certain someone. In the act of demonstrating something to somebody, certain social positions are created. So, for example, the social position of the demonstrator and the social position of the person being instructed. We may think then of the educational operation of demonstrating something as an operation in which certain subjects are being constituted or made. Empirically, one can reconstruct this constitution of the subject by observing how subjects are being addressed by others, right? This is because by addressing someone as someone, we recognize them as a certain someone. Now, lessons at school are usually intended to deliver a certain learning objective. To achieve this objective, teachers usually follow a certain method to make this objective attainable for the students. Students are therein addressed as a certain specific subject. Take, for example, this real scene, which I translated to you from the works of Combe and Gebhardt. The teacher, you all know a mirror, and you know also what to do with it, right? Okay, then I'd like to have Sammy come here. Sammy comes forward. So, Sammy, you're going to be my mirror now. She raises her hands, or the teaching person raises her hands. That means everything I do, you do too. So Sammy stands up, says, okay. The teacher lowers her hand and then raises them again. Sammy raises his hand. The teacher moves her right hand to the right, and Sammy, with a slight delay, Sammy moves his left hand to the left. The teacher raises her right arm, and Sammy raises his left arm, and just continues for some time. The teacher asks then, what does the mirror do when I stretch out my right leg? And the teacher stretches out her right leg forward, and Sammy stretches his left leg forward and pulls it back. So since the teacher asks what happens in the mirror, 2 students now answer left. So the teacher says, so the sides always switched. Okay, thank you, Sammy. And Sammy returns to his seat. The game being played here is far more complicated than an imitation of corporal moves. What is being imitated is a thought process, and the students are universally addressed by the teacher, by the teacher's questions as subjects capable of undergoing said thought process. Formally, what is happening here is an extremely common everyday communication patterns in school lessons, which we know about since the 70s. It's called initiation, response, feedback. The students have to take the position of a very shrewd hermeneut or an astute interpreter if they want to fulfill this position. I'm coming to museums, don't worry about it. Whether they succeed filling out the social position, which comes with being addressed in this way as hermeneuts or interpreters, is a very serious affair, because their recognition as a good student is very much dependent on them being able to readdress the teacher accordingly. In this case, at least 2 of them seem to be successful. To show you how precarious, how dangerous such a situation of being addressed as an hermeneutic subject can be, I brought another example, which is also real and which I translated from Breidensteinmeier and Zaborowski, 2012. Rebecca says, so Rebecca is being called to the front, and that's in order to be graded, to be given a grade. Rebecca says that she's learned it. Mrs. Stern summarizes the situation. So, tell us. Rebecca stands at the front by the backboard, hesitates, she's very quiet. I can hardly understand anything from back here. It takes a long time, probably a minute or so. Mrs. Stern has given her and herself and all of us time. Hesitantly and quietly, she tells something about fish reproduction. Actually, she doesn't really tell, but rather she answers with individual terms to the teacher's questions. Until what point do we speak of mating, ejaculation? How do fish find each other? How do they recognize that they are ready to make? Tell sense. Meanwhile, Elsa whispers extensively with Klaus Maria. Mrs. Stern now looks at Klaus Maria. Klaus Maria, can you do it better? Klaus Maria waves it off and continues with Rebecca and fish reproduction. Why do they lay so many eggs? Because many get eaten. And why else? Rebecca can't think of another reason. Tessa raises her hand and gets a turn. Because many eggs are not fertilized. Another student who also raised his hand now gets a turn. Because the water flows and the sperm passes by the eggs. Correct, Mrs. Stern summarizes. The water is constantly moving and many eggs get swept away. Then Mrs. Stern turns back to Rebecca. What belongs to the vertebrates? Birds, fish, mammals? Rebecca knows to answer correctly. Okay, now Mrs. Stern holds back. But without asking the class afterwards, do you want to but not without asking the class afterwards, do you want to squeeze her? 2 more questions. Rebecca being addressed here is being addressed here as someone who ought to know, who has to know. If she does not know or does not know to answer fast enough, another might steal the opportunity and answer for her. So her being recognized as a capable student is very precarious, very dangerous situation for her, right? It depends, for example, on her knowing her vertebrates and being daring enough to articulate the word ejaculation in front of her fellow 5th graders. Just imagine what would have happened to Rebecca if she'd been mistaken. Right, recognition, the mode where we constitute ourselves from the other, is therefore a very dangerous, very, very dangerous game. We risk it, or rather the specific ways in which we are recognized, we risk that constantly. We risk losing it all the time. This applies to the social position of the students, just as it applies to the social position of the teacher, the listener of a talk, or the speaker at an event in Genoa. However, some subjects, and now I'm coming back around, some subjects are more prone to have their recognition withdrawn. The following is a small sequence from an interview with the parents of the elementary student named Samet, which I translated here from the works of Machold and Wieland. The mother directed at the father. It's an interview, from an interview. The mother directed at the father, "You always say to him, Samet, you always have to be twice as good as the others." The father is laughing. "Yeah, that's how it is." The father, "Because it's the interviewer." "Why?" The mother, "Because he's a foreigner." That's how it is. It is. "How does that show itself?" asked the interviewer. "Yeah, he doesn't notice it now. But when he gets a bit older, he'll definitely notice." And the interviewer, The mother, "We actually notice it more in how people treat you, you know. I've had a foreign surname for 10 years, and the interviewer, "Yeah, you said your name rejected. Then you have to," and the mother, "You can already tell that people react differently to when you call somewhere, it's usually quite bad." The foreigner, with an asterisk, or in this case, their lover bearing their name on the telephone, who is treated differently to those who are deemed to be part of the dominant culture, is the one who's have very precarious recognition here. I will stipulate here that someone always having to work twice as hard as the others to achieve the same goal, that is a form of discrimination. The parents in this sequence present themselves and their son Samet as being faced with migration-related discrimination that manifests itself in the way they experience the recognition of another person on the phone. But what do they do in response? They continue. "When they realize that you can speak German flawlessly and you express yourself properly, people become a bit more approachable. But if, for example, it's the substitute pediatrician and I insisted I need a doctor's note because my child is sick, then I already get weird looks. You know, there are these cases. They're actually quite subtle stories, but well, we deal with it. But the child certainly notices less of it than we do." Their response to discrimination, the response of these parents to discrimination is them speaking flawless German, which is here also designated as the proper way to express oneself. The response to the discrimination is we deal with it. They are crushing the hallucinated language barrier being implied in interactions with discriminating natives. They speak better than they do anyways. It's a story I've heard before. Certainly, this account should not be understood as a way to describe a model migrant adapting a dominant culture. Moreover, what we may learn from Samet's parents and their way of bringing up the child is that desire, in this case, the desire to normalize, plays an all-important role when we think of inclusive education, whether at school or at the museum. This brings me to my next and final point, where I will elaborate on the psychoanalytical consequences of this anthropological account for the youth work within this project and the pedagogical challenges of working with students with experience of discrimination. We asked students directly if they may have experienced discrimination in their past. However, I hope you understand that I will present these findings to you at a later date. For now, I want to focus on the question what it would mean to consciously and professionally include another's desire for recognition within an educational setting. For example, in a museum course. Within German discourse, a dominant way to differentiate different kinds of desires for recognition is the theory of trilematic inclusion, as presented by Boga in 2019. And here is where it gets really interesting. I hope you understand why I pulled you through all that. For Boga, the desire not to be discriminated against condenses into 3 points, which express themselves in 3 lines of empowerment, normalization, and deconstruction. The desire is trilematic, however, since a combination of 2 has to exclude the 3rd. This makes the desire not to be discriminated inherently unstable and dissonant. One may experience the desire to be allowed to participate as the other among normals, which would be the EN line. An example of this conjecture of normalization and empowerment may be found in Samet's parents, whose German is so good they are treated more equal on the phone. Another may experience the desire to be seen in one's individuality without being ascribed otherness. Such a desire might express itself in as the wish of Samet not to work, having to work twice as hard because he's deemed a foreigner, or Samet being recognized simply as being Samet. He's normal. The difference to others, we can deconstruct it. It's not important. Yet another, and it's the 3rd possibility, yet another may experience the desire to be allowed to exist in one's own uniqueness without having to hide or conform. This is the deconstruction empowerment line. Where Samet's parents, to follow this part, they may underline that Samet's prescribed migratory background is a myth, that Samet's grandparents may have been migrants, but if we start to count grandparents, then who in this world doesn't have a migratory background? In this view, Samet would do well to let slip the dogs of war against such an obscure and ridiculous construct like a migratory background. Every combination of 2, however, has to exclude the possibility of the 3rd. One, for example, cannot articulate a desire to be allowed to exist in one's own uniqueness without having to conform and simultaneously demand to be able to participate as the other among normals. That's simply contradictory. Now, if we, as educators, teachers, museal educators, if we as educators want to recognize the desire of a discriminated subject, we are faced with a similar structured problem, because as Boger notes, first, those who recognize others in order to value their otherness reproduce the attribution of difference and thus reinforce it. Empowerment normalization. Those who recognize others as individuals in order to avoid ascribing otherness and difference, and instead to see them in their singularity, soon overlook the historical weight of these characterizations and risk falling into denial and leveling of difference, the normalization, deconstruction. Those who recognize others, third, those who recognize others as radically and fundamentally other, who seek to escape universalism, which they regarded as false, and thus are thus to be respected as resistant others, reproduce their exclusion from the normal deconstruction empowerment. The problem consists here in what Borger, drawing upon Bedorf, calls the chaos of erroneous recognition. How are we supposed to know as whom we are to recognize someone's desire, especially when they don't know them that well? In my own work, as an educator and due to my disciplinary background, I'm quite frequently confronted with students who, often very tacitly, report on experiences of discrimination. At some point I realized how I drew upon a pattern of argumentation that ascribed to the deconstruction empowerment line. Now, for a student who really desires normalcy, being addressed as fundamentally different may be viewed as a devaluation of one's very hard work of integrating in a society, which I, as an educator, am implied to represent. When I think about the projects within Moving Europe's youth work, this erroneous recognition is a real danger we all need to acknowledge. Take, for example, those project concerns with interviewing migrants. A small group of students sits in front of an old woman who proudly announces that today no one would even realize that she once arrived in Italy as a small child at the harbor of Genoa, and so on. How would her desire to be recognized as normal be mediated by a student who understands his own migration, his sexuality, or his own disability as radically opposed to normalization, who's extremely on the line of deconstruction, for example? How would a teacher or museal educator react when presented with a success story of assimilated normalization? Will these stories make it to Brussels? If we work well, the stories Moving Europe will write and curate are going to be dissonant. There will be dramas spun around the points of empowerment, normalization, and deconstruction. That is, if their protagonist will be recognized correctly. They will also be the product of many different lines of desire. We would do well to consider this. Who is the other, and what might their history desire them? Who are we to understand this desire as, how are we to understand this desire as a consequence of a dissonant life, which the youths in our program are meant to curate? How can we avoid an erroneous recognition of the subjects we story and of the curating youths we're meant to educate? It's quite a sad affair, this erroneous recognition. It's a real danger, because we may again deprive a subject of its deprived recognition. Recognition once already deprived by discrimination. On the other side, and without any romanticizing, there may be the opportunity to provide someone with the recognition long desired, and thus to help them become the person that they desire to be. And that's education. Thank you.
Just one question regarding the Boger's theory and the aspect of these 3 layers of how we understand the others. I'm not sure if you are familiar with the work of Lea David. She wrote a book named The Past Can Heal Us, and she's basically trying to explain how people and organizations who are working with different kind of communities, by labeling them as members of one community, just basically they are making them more members of that exclusive community without giving a chance or a possibility to basically move out of the box of their, for example, ethnic identity. So how to epistemologically escape that gap?
It is feasible to assume that of an excluded community, which is excluded by constructing a fixed otherness, right? Many of the subjects being part of this excluded community would desire normalcy. So it would make sense to develop a program for them which offers normalcy. But on the other hand, there may be individuals in there who are extremely not interested in that. And in that case, you may very much disappoint this person's desire. So it is a very tricky way, but you can work with assumptions of groups of people being statistically more on specific lines. That's the only way I know to answer your question right now. How was the book called?
Past Can Heal Us. Like, it cannot heal us, Lea David. I mean, I have a lot of negative comments on that book, but we can just maybe to give another comment. So, for example, Franco-German Youth Office that was established by France and Germany in order to work with youth as within inter-ethnic groups. They tried to work on the issues which are complementary for these 2 groups of youth, volunteering, sports, some happy stuff. And during decades, they established that it's not possible to move away to normal stuff and to escape the issue that is dividing them. And that's the dispute of history, the history disputes, the events that took place during the past. So that is one of the reasons I'm asking, since I'm working with youth in a post-conflict context, and their ethnic identity and their class affiliation, which you describe as a social status, I would say, is very defining their whole life, basically. So I think it would be very hypocritical to avoid their ethnic identity, since it's closely linked to their economic status, social status, how they perceive their gender, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, maybe just to stop there.
Okay, yeah. I think they would probably be on these lines then, but it's a guess. Yeah, you could, of course, talk with them, get to know them, and over time get a feeling for it. But the problem with museal education is that you have very spontaneous contact. Like normally, if I get a new class in a school, I have like 2 years of working with these children, but you're confronted with the enormous, or also in university education, you know, you're confronted with the problem that here's your learning group. You have never seen them before. Now deal with it. It's very hard. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, one point. I think this part of your presentation is related to adjusting the program to the needs of each group of children, either in the museum setting or at a school class. And we have, as educators, the word of differentiation.
Yeah.
This is, I think, the main point. Isn't
That
it?
that you should differentiate between different, for different students.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the best case, you should individualize your course, but that's of course a high demand to someone, especially if you're doing something like offering pre-conceptualized courses, which is obviously a totally okay thing to do, but it comes with certain costs. And the cost may be a lack of individualization, which is also something very hard to do in regular school lessons too. So, yeah.
It needs much time for museum educators. A good solution is to cooperate with teachers who know better their children and try to adjust the activities and try relatively to act in the during the program at the museum.
But the point of differentiation is actually, I think, very valid for museal education, for migration museums, because one might then reflect, if I have actually something for everyone on this spectrum, am I only normalizing migration? Am I only, I haven't yet really seen a migration museum heavily deconstructing the idea of migration, but yeah, the question is, what can we give to someone who may come here, and what maybe what can't we offer? And I think that's a valuable mode of reflection when you do any educational setting, basically. Yeah. Welcome, very welcome. Thank you.